With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced Sim Racing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware. And that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
The Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series heads from America's National Park of Speed to the land of the rising sun, where today, live from the virtual twin ring Motegi, we welcome you to RaceSpotTV and VCO Esports for coverage of a doubleheader of GT3 action. Delighted to join you here for some PRL coverage. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. I've been watching on from the sidelines for the past 12 weeks or so. Now we get stuck in, and I'm joined by someone who I think it's fair to call the voice of the PRL, Joey Tebben, who is commentating on basically everything PRL related this fall. And Joey, what a fun round one we had, with a close finish to the very end. And today we head to a track where you were saying you don't really like to drive it, but it is a track where racing can be fun.
It is a track where racing can be fun. I think some of us are more used to the big egg-shaped oval. That's where we normally race here at Motegi, but it's called Twin Ring for a reason. There is a road course. It does, in fact, exist on iRacing, and we are going to put 45 cars in this fixed series on here tonight, and then the sprint race later, probably north of 50 cars if last week is anything to go by. We set some very high expectations last week. We had two incredible races in the fixed and sprint series, but it bodes well. If we can do a race that good at Road America, and everywhere we raced last season, we can put on a pretty good race at Motegi too, I think.
And what a schedule we've got for you. Let's talk a little bit about it before we move on. It's going to be a world journey. We head after this back to the US, first to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, the home of Petit Le Mans. Based on the weather, we may end up running before the race gets underway this weekend. We'll track that, of course, live on social media. WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca after that. Then a European swing before a truly global finale. And Joey, there's no getting around it. It is the Roscogan finale that will attract plenty of attention.
Two new tracks, Oschersleben and Rudskogen, both getting added here on the GT3 calendar. Rudskogen, it might be a little bit too small of a track for these cars, but that's going to make that championship finale so interesting. Laguna Seca is actually the most similar track, I would say, on this schedule in terms of how difficult it's going to be to pass. But if there's drivers who need to win the championship, they're going to find a way to pass at Rudskogen, and that is going to be a very exciting finale. But we've still got 7 weeks in between all your GT3 favorites and some more obscure tracks that we don't always see. We don't always see Snetterton. We do see it pretty frequently in GT3 competition, but still, a lot of drivers going to be untrained there. Coda doesn't always come up. And of course, 2 new tracks. Nobody's driven them except probably in a few practice laps.
It'll be interesting how the start goes at Oschersleben, that is for sure. It's academic looking at the standings because 1 week in, the points are as they finished 7 days ago, so Floyd Kerr stands on top in these GT3 fixed standings. No Pro-Am championships, we'll save that for the Sprint Series later on tonight. Let's talk about the Team Championship though, because it is going to be a close one over the course of this championship and already shaping up quite nicely with 2 teams starting to build some momentum.
And the Team's Championship is going to be complicated because the driver who won the race last night, Floyd Kerr, he is on a team of his own. He's an HPDS Academy driver. He's all on his lonesome. So the team that currently leads the Team's Championships, the North Squad of Vulture Motorsports, that is the team with Eric Kalaga, Jeff Carollo, and Gary Brown. None of those drivers won the race, but they brought home some consistent finishes. Both Carollo and Gary Brown finished in the top 6, if I am remembering correctly. So consistency is going to be the key over the course of 10 weeks. The Drivers' Championship is one beast, but the Team's Championship, it's even closer.
We look from up above at this unique facility. Of course, Suzuka meant to bring Formula One to this part of the world. Motegi built to bring American Open Wheel Racing IndyCar here. It took a long time, 6+ years, before Dan Weldon became the first winner in a Honda-powered machine at Motegi. Unfortunately, an earthquake damaged the oval. It's now used mostly as storage. It's the road course that cuts underneath it that takes center stage. Of course, before we get underway with our on-track coverage, we take the time to thank those that make this possible, starting with virtual competition organization. Whether it be in the VCO Pro Sim Series, blurring the lines from virtual reality, or challenging the best in sim racing across of the sim racing universe in the VCO Esports Racing League, VCO has it all on our Twitch channel. So make sure you stay tuned on Twitch for all the latest news in the world of VCO Esports and the VCO community. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offered mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. And ButtKicker. ButtKicker products an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. We thank those sponsors for our coverage tonight, and now it is qualifying, and with a big field, Joey, it is going to be important to get towards the front of the board.
It is going to be important, especially, it's not a track that I would say is hard to pass at necessarily. There's lots of heavy braking zones, there's lots of opportunities for mistakes for the drivers ahead of you, but in a 45-car field, it's obvious to say, but you probably don't want to be down at the back of the field. The number 52 of Jeff Carollo, sporting a new livery this week, or I believe his real livery is finally loaded in. He's going to spin it into the wall. He's going to start 7th most likely, unless he can get back out with 4 more minutes to go. But it's a deep field. It's a long lap. Starting up front is always the place to be. And Floyd Kerr, he's on a streak. He was on pole last week. He's going to try and do it again. Actually, he wasn't on pole, but he was close, and he won the race.
We love the diversity of GT3 cars. This Audi, of course, known for being a treacherous beast, even in the hands of the most capable pro drivers. A 150.187 the benchmark. No improvement this time around, but still 4 minutes left in this qualifying session as Floyd Kerr completes lap 2 of this qualifying session. Velos up into 6th. The margin not that tight outside of the top 3 drivers, a 10th splitting them.
Yeah, there were some pretty big gaps in practice from what I was seeing. There was a lot of spread from from first down to about 20th, there were like 2 seconds, and that was way bigger than at Road America. But in qualifying now, everybody has brought that down a little bit. They're a little bit closer, and we're seeing a lot less field spread. You just saw Rasmussen, the driver who came so close to winning the race last week at Road America, threw it off the road at the final corner, though. He is currently 11th, a little bit further down than he would like. And we're riding, or not riding on board, we're watching Regan Chandler now, one of the pairs of the Chandlers. I believe Ryan Chandler is currently ahead, but Regan's still out there. He's trying to win that family battle.
We always enjoy those little fights within the fights, if you will. I'm sure as we work through the course of this season as well, we'll see a little bit more of those storylines. Motegi's an interesting track where the curbs are flat, so you can really maximize the usage of the track, but it is important not to stray too far because 2 wheels on the grass, it can truly be treacherous. In terms of manufacturers, we do have a healthy mix, which I am loving to see. Yes, 2 Porsches inside of the top 3, but Audi, BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, all represented in the top 10 with the McLaren down in 12th.
It was a little bit of a Porsche party at the top of the timesheets in practice again, but qualifying has shaken everything up. Gary Brown, who we're watching right now, he was probably, if I had to say, he was the fastest driver at Road America last week. He just made a big mistake, again through the final corner, fell out of that fight for the victory, and it became an Audi battle in those final couple of laps of the race. But the Porsche 911 GT3R, clearly the car that you want to have in the GT3 series, although unlike the Sprint series, you can still put up a fight if you're in an Audi or a BMW, or even the Lamborghini is up there in the top 10. So you can put up a fight. It's just going to be tough.
Then you've got this fire-breathing McLaren MP4-12C. It is quite old, if we're being honest, but it's still just... there's something about it that delights petrol heads. Whether it's the flames coming out the back, whether it's the snap oversteer, that means you're always terrified of what the car is going to do to you. It is just one of those cars that you do truly enjoy to wheel. So 90 seconds left to go. If you don't really have a lap started now, you are not likely to get it done. Brandon Six will wind out of the final corner in the Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo in that 4 machine, 151.074, his best lap time of the session so far, half a second quicker, a 55.45 will jump him up into the front 3 rows.
And it is just so fitting. Brandon Six in P6. He always seems to find himself there, and I could not be happier about that. That is where he should be. I'm sure he wants to be winning races. I'm sure he wants to be on pole, but Brandon Six again in 6th place, just like he was for a lot of the race last week. He's not going to get one more lap. He's out of time, but a huge improvement. He was fantastic through the final sector. Those last couple corners, I'd say they're the toughest corners on this track because you gotta minimize your entry speed in the first part in a really awkward way to try and maximize the second half. We're going to watch Matías Arangua try and take control of this right now. You really want to take as much speed as possible through that first half of the corner, but that's just going to kill your run on the exit of the second half of the corner, and that's just that balancing act. How do you take it? What line do you take? How do you figure it out? I've never figured it out. Matías Arangua did. Still hasn't improved, though.
It's a long run to the line as well, so that momentum does come quite in handy. But qualifying will come to a close, and after taking the victory last week, it will be Kerr on top as we get ready to go racing in the land of the rising sun. It's no longer called Twin Ring Motegi. It's now dubbed Mobility Resort Motegi, but in our hearts it will live on as a facility that saw IndyCar come to Japan and put on a fight for many a year. Let's run you down through the starting grid, though, for round 2 in this championship. Floyd Kerr in the Audi at the front of the field, but a Porsche alongside, and only 300ths off the pace. Eric Luke will be looking to challenge on the run into the double apex turn number 1. Gary Brown inside of Michael Terrafino in the BMW, with Benatti in 6th, 5th, and 6th positions, of course fitting for 6th in 6th. The Ferrari of Velos 7th inside of the privateer Sully Saad. Matías Arangua and Jeff Carolla round out the top 10 with Kenny Duval in the Cloud Valve Racing South number 63 inside of row 6. Andrew Rasmussen alongside. From 13th will be Dave Peterson in the McLaren. He'll have a BMW for company with that 13 Vulture Motorsport South car, SRT Esports and Throttle Thursdays in the Plaid for the fall. Row number 8, Nick Silver and Michael Kalaga, 17th and 18th positions, bookending the top 20. It's Steven Martinez in the Ferrari alongside the McLaren of Mercedes, of Ryan Chandler, Dale Peterson and Roy Brown in a very yellow Porsche 911 GT3 are 21st and 22nd. A second splitting, by the way, the top 20 cars, Eric Kulaga, Patrick Cowgill, 23rd and 24th. Behind them, Sean DeHamel, Chris Colantino, Baron Glover, Glenn Vanco, Jad Calaif, Randy Goss, the top 30, and we'll cycle through the next couple of cars. We've got a big field that is getting ready to go with a short formation lap here, and in cars that already are big, unwieldy at the best of times on cold tires, running into turn 1 is going to be interesting.
Interesting is certainly a word for it, especially after the rolling start that we're going to have to navigate through the final couple of corners. It's a very, very odd first corner. It's rectangular, basically. And you think it's tighter than it actually is. You can take more speed, usually, than you think you can. All these drivers have been practicing for the last couple hours. They just got done qualifying, but now it's finally crunch time, and all that practice comes undone because suddenly you've got 44 cars around you, and you've got to figure out if you can still navigate through turn 1.
35-minute race, 40% fuel. We will probably see pit stops, so it should be interesting as well with a treacherous pit entry at the best of times, how different drivers are able to navigate this one. As we get ready though for more than 40 cars to go racing, at Motegi anything can happen. As we cut under the oval, we funnel through the tricky final complex of corners. After the victory at Road America, it's Floyd Kerr that will bring us to the green, but with plenty of pressure behind. Audi, Porsche, BMW, Porsche, Mercedes. A nice mix at the front and a long old hold as we get ready to go racing in the land of the rising sun for Tuesday night GT3. It's GT3 fixed up first, and we're racing in the Precision Racing League. It's a great start from Paul, almost 3 wide on the run down into turn 1 for second. The BMW goes a long way around, and Brown finds his way to the podium, but spinning from second, there's chaos on the exit of turn 2.
I think that was Kenny Duval going around, and Gary Brown got collected as well. Terrafino was the driver in the BMW trying to go around the outside. I don't know if there was contact between the two or if Kenny Duval just lost the rear end of that Porsche, but that's calamity at the back of the field. Luckily, nobody else was involved as they drove back onto the track while the last couple cars were still going through. But that Porsche, it loves to spin sometimes. We'll have to see if he got any help, though.
And already the field very much being broken up, with first and 10th being split by over 6 seconds. So the start is enabling the likes of Kerr to run away at the front of the field. Now into the middle portion of the lap. When it gets a little bit twisty, it gets a little bit slippery as you funnel your way through the S's and then into some heavy braking zones and some of your primary passing opportunities.
I should correct myself. That was Eric Luke that spun to the Porsche, not Kenny Duval. Wrong Porsche, by the way. So Eric Luke, Gary Brown were the two that were collected at turn 1 there. Everybody else, though, has single filed out, which is very, very good. Through those S's, that's probably the toughest place on the track to go side by side. Through 7 and 8, it's almost single groove like an oval through there. It's almost impossible to go side by side. But some of our drivers figured it out. There's still side by side stuff further back. I think Ryan Chandler and Eric Kalaga still haven't left each other's side.
Look at the gap at the front of the field. It's 1.8 seconds already, and we've got one of an estimated 20 laps about to be in the books. Floyd Kerr runs away in the hard point by Delta Sport Academy car. The Audi at the front of the field leads at the end of lap 1. Terrafino up 2 spots into second. Benatti also +2. Velos 6, Arungana the top 6 positions as we get underway for what already has proved to be a calamitous race for some. Noting Alex Wright has run off the track as well, and in his Lamborghini rejoins right alongside Matt Dinsmore.
It's a tough place to rejoin. Looks like he is going to hang on to the position at least. I thought Dinsmore might have a little bit more speed in that Mercedes in a straight line. He doesn't need it, though, because he's later on the brakes. I don't know if Wright has any damage, but he is going to let Dinsmore by. That Lamborghini is also looking like it's struggling on lap 1. He might still have a little bit of dirt on his tires. He might be overheating just a little bit, but Wright does not look comfortable right now. Brakes farther to the left than anybody else does. And it's still a Porsche battle in the middle of the field here. 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. This is the midfield, which is pretty incredible considering how big of a field we have, and there's action all the way through.
Yeah, it makes it difficult to pick out where exactly you want to look because there is fighting basically everywhere in the field. Unless it's at the front, where now the top 4 each split by at least 1 second and counting, so it is starting to splinter up at least for them. Let's turn our attention to the RaceSpotTV replay because it will show us what happened at the start. And there's contact. There was contact that led to the spin there.
Yeah, Terrafino didn't do anything. He was the innocent bystander. It was Gary Brown that actually got into the side, or got into the back, rather, of Eric Luke there, turned him around. That's also what expanded Floyd Kerr's lead, while Terrafino avoided that. But two strong Porsches, the whole second row in qualifying, both wiped out 2 corners into the race. I think Gary Brown is still okay. He doesn't have much damage. He's going to be on a recovery drive, and there goes Carollo around.
Lamborghini at the very bottom of the hill down at turn 11 now has to wait to rejoin, and this is patient, this is good, but it stings and it hurts like nothing else. Kerr will provisionally take the fastest lap as Brandon Six will drop behind the 44 BMW on the run into turn number 1. For Carollo, though, from inside of the top 20 to 43rd, just like that.
And that's another recovery drive to add to the list. It's always unfortunate when a driver has to pass 20-something cars to get back up into the top 10, but when you've got Carollo and Gary Brown at the back of the field, that is a very good thing for a racing broadcast, because you know they're going to be making passes. But let's see what happened to Carollo. Under braking into turn 11, straightforward, and then just loses the rear on turn in. A GT3 car specialty is just lazily spinning around like that. It all looks fine, and then he just takes a little bit too much speed, slides it a little bit, and there's no saving that. And then you've got about 9,000 cars all in a train that all have to pass you before you can get back going again.
And he does the correct thing as well, gives a little bit more space, just to ensure that if someone else ran wide, he was not in harm's way. So good heads-up driving, at least after the initial incident. Of course, a lot of people say the Lamborghini and the Audi same car, and maybe the initial generation of the Lamborghini Huracan, yes, but this Evo that we have on iRacing, this upgraded generation, new chassis from Dallara, completely reworked aerodynamic package, it very much has become the replacement for Audi, at least in North America, with Audi pulling out for the most part from customer competitions. At the front of the field, let's give a shout out to that BMW. Terrafino is keeping Kerr honest, the gap down to 1.2 seconds as Kerr comes straight to pit lane.
That is very, very interesting. He misses it. I think he completely missed the pit entry. Luckily, he's not going to get an unsafe pit entry for that, I don't think, because he did make the yellow cone. But if this is it's not a scheduled stop. Floyd Kerr has disconnected from the session. He hasn't disconnected. He's just taken a tow to his pit stall. I don't know what's going on with Floyd Kerr. There's no way he could have gotten a penalty this early, but clearly something's going on in Floyd Kerr land, because now he has disconnected from the session, from the lead of the race.
And I think this gives us an opportunity to look at pit entry as well. So let's grab a look on board with his Audi, and you just see there's a chicane before it. He does overcommit and overcook it. Yes, we've all done that at some point, whether it be in practice or the race. But clearly something not right as last week's winner out of the race.
And now Michael Terrafino has kind of been gifted the lead here for the first time, so we'll see if Andre Bonatti can put up a fight there, but there is certainly a fight for 4th place. Arangua, 6, Sully Saad, Kenny Duval. There is a heck of a train behind the fight for that podium, and Matias Arangua, he's trying to get away. We know he has speed in this Mercedes. He put it on pole last week, and he is pulling away just a little bit from Brandon Six now, but the train is still corked up here.
We're on board with Kenny Duval in the 63. You can run a couple of different lines here through turn 9, and then you head towards one of the highest parts of the track. You plunge down out of 10 into the braking zone of 11, where gravity works against you. Duval with a late lunge, and let's be honest, it was never really on.
It wasn't really on, and I don't even know if that was an intentional move from Kenny. I think he might have just outbraked himself, and he was lucky to not get into the back of Sully Saad, but we know Kenny has a lot of speed. He's normally in a Ferrari for Klauval, but he's elected to take the popular Porsche this season. He's performing well so far with it, but he's got more speed than Sully Saad's Porsche does, evidently. Sully actually did the reverse of what Kenny did into turn 11. He was the one blocking the inside, sending it a little bit too hard. The pressure's clearly on, but they've kind of been evening out. They've both been making the same mistakes, and neither of them have been able to get any sort of advantage.
A couple of replays to take a look at. First up, it's Matt Dinsmore into that final complex. Joey's described just how difficult it is, and you think he overcommitted initially and then got him all sorts of squirrely through the final complex of corners. Fortunately, no one runs into him. Then subsequently, just a couple of moments later, Steve Bammer drops the 2 left sides onto the grass, and I did talk about this earlier.
Yeah, grass is never a good place to be when you're in a GT3 car, or any car for that matter, but even at this place, it's especially slippery on the outside. It's an older scan, and also there's 3 different coefficients of friction there. There's asphalt, there's curb, and there's grass. And when you've got your car on all 3 of those, it's probably not going to continue going in a straight line. And unfortunately for Steve Bamber, there was a very large wall on the outside there that was going to collect his car. But look at this train growing again. It was just a Brandon 6 train. Now he's fallen back. It's a Sully Saad train, like 10 cars back.
Ooh, it's Duval again. I'm starting to wonder as how aggressive he wants to play this one. Porsche on Porsche contact, throwback to Daytona at the end of the 24. Just last year, Duval up to 5th now. This well and truly is a brawl.
And now Kenny's just going to run away here. Sully is struggling right now in that white and red Porsche. He's going to continue to hold up the train, and I think that's why Kenny went for that move, because he knew it's now or never. I need to get out of this train. I can take full advantage of this and just run away in the top 5. And he did. He was certainly aggressive with it. He made a little bit of contact with Sully, but they got away with it. They both kept rolling in a straight line. And now Kenny tries to set off into the sunset as the very, very large snake, down to about 13th place, tries to chase Sully Saad down.
So these drivers now 9+ seconds adrift from your leader, Terrafino, 1.3 clear of Bonatti. Further 2+ seconds back to Velos, and then the 44 stranded, or rather not stranded, right behind the 19 and hunting them down. Again, a good mix up front, but again, like you mentioned, Joey, there is a bit of a trend towards the Porsche this season. It's something that every time iRacing releases a new build and these cars get incremental updates, the balance shifts around and drivers' preferences change around as well. The Porsche being rear engine, it's not such a consideration now, but when iRacing eventually adds rain and maybe it comes to the PRL, it might be the preferred car in all GT3 competitions.
It's always hard to predict, because last season was the kind of the Mercedes challenge, we dubbed it, especially in the Sprint Series, and it's changed again. It's the Porsche in the Sprint Series. We saw in qualifying last week the top 10 were all Porsches. In this fixed series, the Porsche's still strong. It was the same with the Mercedes last season. What's going to happen next season? Who knows? Maybe something will happen with the old McLaren, and that'll be the dominant car that you want to have. It's unpredictable, and frankly, you're just at the behest of iRacing, and especially when they add a new car, they always seem to be pretty strong. So if we get a new GT3 car, if we get that, I don't know, am I allowed to say if we get that Lexus next build, that'll be the ideal car? I don't know.
Lexus will be fun. I'd like an updated McLaren, just because I am partial to the brand, and it would be a nice addition. Just look at how long that train is now as they work again down the hill into turn 11. It stretches almost the entirety of that back straightaway right now, and at 54 is looking feisty and looking hungry. We jump on board the roof cam and sweep through those final couple of corners. Pressure may be building on the 79, but Saad, you wonder about him struggling. Well, we can talk about in terms of the gap that Duval has already managed to build, 1.7 at the line.
Yeah, Kenny was a full second faster than Sully Saad on that last lap, and Sully is not going to get any respite because Kyle Strykars is the next very aggressive Porsche behind him. And then speaking of McLarens, Dave Peterson is still doing a fantastic job in that old jalopy of a McLaren. He's holding up very, very well in 8th. Brandon 6 was higher, then made a mistake, then fell back. That's why this train is so close, because frankly, I think the fastest drivers in this train are kind of in the middle of it, and they just can't figure out a way to get out of it. But once they do start advancing their way forward, I think Sully will have to start worrying a little bit more, and then Kenny Duval, about 2 seconds ahead, he's going to have to start worrying about getting chased down again, because he has a very helpful roadblock right now. But once that's out of the way, if it ever is, you got to start looking in your mirrors again.
Now, it's not a consideration for these drivers, of course, GT3 fixed. It is a fixed setup series, but later on with the GT3 Open, as Chandler and Brown will be side by side through the S's, and spinning around will go Ryan Chandler. That is not how he wanted his race to go. Yeah, I think the face sums it up.
It's tough to go side by side through the S's. That's what I mentioned. I think there was a little bit of netcode, at least from my perspective there, with Brown and Chandler side by side, but also Brown was sending it around the outside. He barely had a nose to the inside. I think you could probably blame him for that one, and I'm sure Ryan Chandler is doing exactly that in his head right now, but that's unfortunate for Roy Brown, another driver who's always consistent. All those Team Beef drivers, they're always consistent. Glenn Vanko, him, Michael Terrafino, who leads the race. you don't always see them make mistakes, but sometimes you do see them get wiped out by other drivers, unfortunately. Let's take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, they were fighting side by side almost all the way out of turn number 5, and it's up in here as you get to the 50, you just see the Mercedes send it deep and try and pinch, and yeah, maybe there's a hint of air there. Maybe you can argue the Porsche could have run a little bit tighter, but it's the dangers of these lazy cars that, despite being very much aerodynamic beasts now compared to when GT3 as a category started, by no means are they as agile as the likes of a GT-LM car. Although comparing them to a GT4, we don't see any drivers crossing over from the GT4 to the GT3, at least with this fixed series, Joey. That illustrates that these cars do have plenty of downforce.
They do have plenty of downforce, and they still find a way to spin, though. We've seen all those lazy spins. They might have downforce, but just like the IRO4 on iRacing, I like to compare it to that. It might have downforce, but there's only so much downforce that can help you when you're losing control. And these cars like to punish a mistake. There it is, right on cue. Nicholas Caranges makes that mistake. He's able to save it. The downforce on the BMW does keep that car planted, actually. But one mistake, one little bit of understeer through those S's, and you're set off for this entire next sector of corners. It never lets up. He's lucky he's going to get away with it. Errol Urexoy has to kind of back out of that attempt at a move. But Caranges makes one mistake, and suddenly there's 5 cars on his tail.
And to some degree, I wonder if it was wise of Urexoy, to commit so much into the first left-hand hairpin, because it's now really ballooned up the gap for a moment, and we'll see how it goes. Down the hill they go again. Nice and tidy for them. Check in with your leaders as we inch towards the halfway point, and as they cross the line yet again, it's Nick Silva that becomes, I think, the first taker onto pit road, and winding their way through the chicane, here comes the flood of takers on pit lane.
I gotta say, well done, everybody, for actually making the pit lane entry. It's always difficult. It's always easy to forget that you actually have to practice your pit lane entry in practice, especially at a place like this where it's very, very weird. Also, Laguna Seca, at Bathurst, all sorts of places where you really need to practice that. But, of course, the utmost of professionalism in the Precision Racing League, and these guys all know what they're doing, and it's going to be a straightforward pit cycle. We'll take a consideration of those times on pit lane. Looks like it's about 11, 12 seconds in the pit box, so once the likes of Terrafino and Bonatti start coming in, we're going to have to keep track of all those tenths, because that's what's going to define the lead of this race.
I don't know if Rasmussen necessarily appreciated being shoved into the grass by Kolaga as they worked on the merge to pit exit. Now, the merge on pit exit is basically right into the firing line of the apex of turn 1, at least the first of the apexes, so maybe we may get some spiciness, not now, likely with the sprint series later on tonight. I do love a good doubleheader of GT3 action. I've got a question for you, Joey, as our resident PRL expert. Are there many drivers that are going to, think about going back to back? Because I think there are some things you carry forward from fixed to open setup competition, but it's a very different balance of car.
I have an easy answer for that question, and that is no, because nobody is double dipping tonight between the two GT3 series, and that's understandable. This fixed series is more, I can't say it's the AM series. It's not the amateur series. It's not the undercard.
It's the stepping stone. It's the opportunity for drivers to get comfortable with the car and how it races.
Yes, that's exactly what we saw last season. Danik Van Daly was absolutely... Oh, well, we'll kill that anecdote, because we're about to go 3 wide to turn 11, and they're gonna back out of it. Alex Wright might just get this move done. Oh dear, not clear, Chandler. And they get away with it, though. A little bit of door banging.
Yeah, sometimes we love anecdotes, but we should talk about the stuff on track occasionally. People complain about Radio Show Limited with some of that, and talking about stories, but that is what radio is about. Terrible exit, though, for that Lamborghini out of the final corner. Don't think the Mercedes will really try and go around the outside. Opportunity for the Ferrari to almost run straight into the back. Well, halfway through this race, it's starting to kick off with plenty of pit stops.
Just heard from Floyd Kerr in our chat here that he had to pull off from the lead of this race because his VR headset started lagging.
Oh no.
So he's been taken out of the immersion. He couldn't drive anymore, and Floyd Kerr, last week's winner, he could have gone 2 for 2, and the gosh darn technology came back to bite him.
He showed the pace, that's for sure. Started in qualifying, of course. Replay machine has caught a few things. Starts with Mark Forte down the hill into 11. Rear engine car, gravity working against you. Not what he would have wanted. And Steve Bammer, I think, he's not enjoying his time here, that is for sure. Just check this one out, also down the hill. Might get a helping hand.
I'm surprised that Steve Bammer's Mercedes is still rolling after that contact with the wall, but it is potentially a little bit damaged. But again, just a lazy spin at turn 11. There's a really big dip in kind of the center of the corner. It's a huge elevation change, not just down that hill. And that will spin a GT3 car around, as it has every single make basically tonight. It's not just the rear-engine Porsche, it's also been the Mercedes, it's been the Lamborghini. We've probably seen a couple Ferraris at the back of the field go around as well. And speaking of Ferraris, Angelo Veloso is going to be the first one in from the top 3.
Yeah, I think interesting call. Now, it will be very important where he comes out relative to lap traffic, because, traffic, not lap traffic, because if he comes out in dirty air, he's not going to enjoy this one as much as he might have. So, as he gets past the green cones, releases himself from the limiter. Okay, there's a little bit of traffic, but it's not as bad as he could have been as he emerges in 16th spot.
And that's why you always see drivers, especially the leaders in these races, when there's a guaranteed pit stop, when you have to come down pit lane. That's something you have to do. You cannot do a 0 stop in this GT3 Fixed Series or in the Sprint Series unless there's very, very extenuating circumstances. Sometimes at like Long Beach you can do it, but beside the point, you've got to make that pit stop. When you're the leader, you're going to wait as long as possible to minimize that chance of coming out in traffic, because there's also no chance at an undercut. Nobody's changing tires in either of these series. Nobody's putting on fresh tires to really pull off a strong undercut to get better lap times while the driver in front of you is struggling on those older tires. That doesn't happen. The tires are always the same. The only way you can pull an undercut is if you're out of traffic and the driver in front of you ends up in traffic. So that's why you always see the likes of Terrafino and Bonatti right now just trying to extend this as long as humanly possible, because with everybody else has come down the pit lane before you, you can't run into them in traffic.
But will you go counter if you're Bonatti to what Terrafino does to try something? Because it is very much these two at the front and then a bit of a gap. So have to track that. Velos has caught the back of Chandler and Gross. Regan Chandler still runs in 15th spot. Ryan Chandler is already come down pit lane and has dropped to 38th after his little issue. We didn't say we were going to track the battle of the Chandlers. It's currently the 18 on top.
Yeah, I've got to think of a mnemonic, because these guys were both in different cars last season. They were in the Lamborghini and the Mercedes. Now it's the BMW and the Mercedes. So I'm going to say it's I just noticed that I think you just mixed the two Chandlers up on Zoom Arjuna. No. I'm gonna point that out to the public. I'm gonna point that out, but I hit BMW Regan, Mercedes Ryan. Remember that.
Yes, no, that's a better way to put it. I hit the button and it didn't track, and I didn't notice until after it was already up.
Sure.
Live broadcasting mistakes are bound to happen. Front of the field, of course, still no takers. Velos last time, 56.164. Not the fastest outlap, although, of course, depending on where your pit box is relative to the start line, it may track slightly differently. RaceSpot.wtf/PRL to track your driver, of course, through this night of GT3 action or across the week of PRL competition on VCO Esports and here live on RaceSpotTV. Fleischmann will be also down on pit lane, as now we just have about 16 odd cars yet to make their stops.
And I can't imagine you can go much longer here. This has to be the end of this cycle. We'll see as Terrafino and Bonatti navigate through the final couple of corners. I think this has to be the time that you come down. Let's watch Terrafino, who I think actually has a little bit of damage on that rear wing from what I can see from lap 1. But here comes Bonatti. Terrafino's going to go one more time around.
It's the split, and I think you had to do something counter to one another to just try and do something different, throw something out there. Arango will dive to pit lane as well. Sully Saad will stay out, but the 54 will dive to the lane and try and get the undercut working. So with 12.5 minutes left to play, about 6 laps to go, it comes down to this, our final cycle of pit stops.
Andre Bonatti was actually bringing down that gap on pace, so Terrafino's got a very, very fast Porsche behind him to worry about. He's going to come out here, I think, yes, he is going to get out just ahead of Glenn Vanko, so he's not going to have to worry about traffic. He's going to have clean track up to about 4 seconds ahead of him. So Bonatti's going to be in good air here. He's going to be perfectly clean. He just needs to keep up those lap times, keep up the pace he had before. And if he's, frankly, just faster than Terrafino on this next lap, that's his chance to jump him.
He is 8 seconds clear of Velosh, and it wasn't 8 seconds coming into the cycle. That is for sure. Another driver has shown the treachery of pit lane entry as the Ferrari of Rodrigo McGlenn very lazily through the grass, and I think fortunately will have been able to avoid any sort of pit lane penalty for an unsafe entry, but now it's all about hammer time. 10.7 seconds for Bonatti in the box, one of the shortest times that we've seen overall.
He did 10.7, Arangua around the same, Kenny Duval 10.2. So clearly those drivers that elected to come in earlier, they've either done different calculations or they did literally have to put more fuel into the car, which is unlikely. The math usually works out to be exactly the same, but here comes Terrafino. He also gets it stopped. He makes it through that awful pit lane chicane, and now we wait. We wait for 31 seconds.
It is a slow pit lane as well. It feels like agony. Down the hill comes the Porsche as we track Bonatti already into the final sector. Tidy into the box for the BMW. There is a little bit of damage. Joey mentioned it to the rear wing of the blue and yellow car. That Porsche committed through the final corners. Puffs up the tires as the BMW rolls. Has Terrafino done enough? 4/10 slower in the box, but it's enough to cover, and now it's about the final 10 minutes and the battle on track.
Bonatti's got to bring that gap down again. He was able to do it on track before the pit cycle. Now, somehow, he's lost it all. He was actually 3/10 slower overall in the pit lane, despite the fact that he was in his box for 4/10 of a second less. Clearly, his run through the rest of the lane was just not quite as quick as Terrafino was, so the gap has re-expanded. But now Bonatti likely has more pace in the tank. He just only has 10 more minutes, 5 more laps to bring down 1.2 seconds again.
A couple of battles still to track. Nick Silver, Errol Oroxi, and Nicholas Karanjus. I'm going to get better with the pronunciations. It's my first time on PRL proper, so I apologize in advance, and I will get better at this one. And whenever I struggle, I'll just rely on Joey to bail me out of it. We've got more racing still left to come. This is a 35-minute race. The Sprint Series, 40 minutes open setup, and the fuel capacity goes from 40% to 50%. Still expect the it's not a mandatory pit stop, but expect a pit stop required by the driving style that these drivers are putting forth out on track. The gap for the lead down to 1.1. Bonatti picks right back up where he left off before the pit cycle.
And there is a lapped car ahead. There's a little bit of lapped traffic. I don't know who that is. That's a Mercedes. I think that might be Fleischmann. And they might catch Fleischmann. They're running multiple seconds faster than him. But he's been keeping it calm and conservative. I don't think he'll be too much trouble, but a lapped car is always worrying, especially in a GT3 race where we're not always talking about lap traffic. We talk about it a lot in the NASCAR Truck Series, which is coming up tomorrow night, but Michael Terrafino, he's going to have to do something he's not used to doing, and that is lapping Jeff Fleischmann potentially. And he's also got a car behind him that's still keeping the pressure on.
Love this back map on the back of that car. To the point about the traffic as well, it's not just the disruption to the momentum, but dirty air, a bigger factor. I was downplaying the aero effects of these cars, but I was talking with Riley Dickinson, who won the Porsche Carrera Cup North America race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway just a couple of weeks ago. And he was saying even at Indianapolis in the 992 Generation Cup car, which is a baby GT3 car at the end of the day, they are feeling the effects of the aero wash, and it is very much about momentum, keeping the tires underneath you. It will be similar for Bonatti right now. Does not want to wear the tires, load them up too much before he's had the opportunity to size up Terrafino for where he can get the move done.
It seems like Bonatti's a lot faster through the second and third sector of the track, but then Terrafino makes it all back up again, and that is the most frustrating thing when you are the chaser. When you're in Bonatti's position, you can bring the gap down, but if your driving style is not suited to the places where you actually need it to be suited to make a move, but he's going to get a little bit of help here. Fleischmann locks up into the hairpin. He does get out of the way, so he's not going to hold up Terrafino. He's not going to hold up Bonatti either. but that was actually very, very helpful through the final corner. Bonatti's going to bring it down to 0.6 of a second. If he can get a better run through the final couple of corners, he wasn't able to on the last lap, but if he can, he's going to be much closer through his worst sector.
And you wonder what the impact of the rear wing damage is to the stability of the BMW front-engine car, known for its comfort in drive. And I don't mean that from a suspension, I mean that for gentlemen drivers to get the most out of these GT3 machines. The Porsche, by contrast, a lot more pointy and demanding in its weight transfer. The gap down to under 6 car lengths as Bonatti continues to roar, and he's got the impetus, but to quote the great Murray Walker, it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass.
He's done exactly what he needed to do, though. He didn't let that gap expand. There's more trouble, more Porsches spinning around. Baron Glover joins the Turn 11 club. Welcome, Baron. I hope you enjoy your time at Turn 11. But that's just another car doing that lazy spin. But Bonatti was able to stick with Terrafino. That gap hasn't expanded to 1.3 seconds. If he can bring 0.6 down through the last 2 sectors of this track again, you can do the math. That's 0 seconds between them. Bonatti's going to be there.
Turn 10 might be crucial here. Who's going to get the best run and the best momentum out of that shoot down into the braking zone at 11? My word, what a season we're in for. Last week at Road America was spectacular. After this, a trip to Road Atlanta, which never disappoints. Bonatti not as close this time through as they dive into the hairpin. Terrafino should be good out of turn 10.
He was much better through there. There was no Fleischmann in front of him to hold him up, but even then, he was far better than Bonatti through that hairpin. Got a far better exit. He has actually expanded the gap again by about 0.2 of a second. Bonatti's got to hope for another Terrafino mistake, I think, and those haven't come very much over the last 30 minutes of this race. So if he's waiting for a Terrafino mistake, he might be waiting for a little while. There's a close battle for the win. There's a close battle for the podium, too. Kenny Duval's trying to drive through Matias Arangua.
Two drivers that have worked their way up more than 5 positions so far as they streak across the line. You can see that on the left side of your screen. Brandon 6 down 2. Everyone else inside of the top 15 positive on the day so far. It is +3 for those that fight for the lead with 4.5 minutes left to play. A great run out of turn 2 though for the Porsche in the battle for third.
It's also a Porsche versus a BMW battle, just like the battle for the lead. So we're seeing mirror images just like we always have. So here comes Kenny Duval on the exit. It's a better exit than Matias Arangua, but these straights just aren't long enough. The straight between turn 3 and 4, I don't think it's going to be long enough for...
Oh, here he goes!
Well,
Duval to the inside, and he gets it done. How did he get it done on the anchor? Slows it down, parked it on the apex. Duval to the podium.
I was just in the process of saying the straight probably wasn't long enough for Kenny Duval to get close enough to send it to the inside, and he found a third brake pedal or something, because I have no idea how he got that car stopped.
Yes, no, they're breaking out the tricks from McLaren back in the day. I think that's likely what happens. But going defensive on the run into turn 9, you can tell that even though I think Duval probably has the pace, feels like he's got to compromise to cover off a move. Arangua into turn 10. This is where he's got to get the run out of the corner to put the pressure on the Porsche.
Tries to diamond it off a little bit like he's at Martinsville, but it didn't work at all. Duval was just perfect through the final corner, just absolutely nailed it. Didn't fall under the pressure of now being the defender instead of the chaser, and he's just going to run away with this podium, I think, unless he makes a mistake. But the trains still exist in the back of the field. Nicholas Carangis has brought about 10 cars. Oh, no, I jinxed him.
Yep, Duval, the next victim of the turn 11 club, excuse me. Validate your tickets. Ooh, Kalaga loops it at the exit of turn 10. That is an unusual place, excuse me, to make a mistake.
If I had to predict, I would say he just got in the throttle a little bit too early and clipped that grass on the outside. Got even over the curb. Let's see what happened under braking. He's trying to chase down one of the Team Beef drivers. Was there contact? There was contact, so he didn't get off into the grass. He just got a little bit of a hip check from one of the Team Beef drivers who probably just didn't realize that he was completely to his right there.
To be fair, the Porsche is basically parked on the curb anyway. There is only so much room that can be left see if we can pick up what happened to Kenny Duval in a couple of moments as well. But it should be white flag in hand next time by, and Bonatti has been unable to make an impression and attack for the race lead just yet.
He better start making that attack because he's going to have one more lap to do it. He's got to start thinking, if I can't bring this gap down, is there anything I can do? Can I pull a Kenny Duval move? Can I outbrake myself by about 4/10? Speaking of outbraking yourself, we are going to see what Kenny Duval did down at turn 11. Well saved, though. We have not seen anybody save a spin like that at turn 11. But Kenny, I think he actually put a little bit of throttle in it to save it, got out in the grass, kept it pointed straight, and he's going to have another shot at the podium. He's actually caught back up to Matias Arango, I think.
Deja vu.
Not quite. He did, and then he fell back.
Yes, deja vu, but they went too wide and actually made it work further back in the field. This is the battle for 14th on back, which is now a three-way fight. Rasmussen, Brown, and Field, the three in question with Martinez and Cowgill just behind them, but they're coming to one to go as your leaders round through the final corner to start the final lap of their race here at the newly minted Mobility Resort Motegi. And into turn one, Bonatti has got to find those extra tenths or the willingness to search for a lunge.
And neither of these drivers have ever won in the Precision Racing League before. Michael Terrafino put it on pole at the end of last season, but he ironically also had another Japanese track, so this is probably a good country for him to be racing in. But he has not won. Bonatti has not won. Arango hasn't won if they come into blows as well. And there's two Lamborghinis trying to kill each other at the hairpin.
Yeah, it seems like the two bulls had a bit of an argument, and Kenny Rodriguez and Alex Wright have both lost out badly there. We watch inset that battle for the lead. We track the replay, and well, they were crashing before they even got to the exit of the corner.
Yeah, Kenny managed to hit Alex Wright there twice in the space of two corners, which is unfortunate, but Kenny Rodriguez is he's the league organizer at the Precision Racing League, so I have more of a right to make fun of him than anybody else, so I think I can.
Well, here we go. Turn 9 for the final time. Lap traffic up in front, but it should not be a factor. Terrafino has absorbed the pressure. Bonatti unable to close. So Mercedes in front, but you feel for Floyd Kerr and his technical issues, but technical issues will be no excuse that Terrafino will be willing to accept, because he was there to pick up the pieces, and despite the Porsche pressure, it was the BMW that absorbed it and rolled its way towards a first Precision Racing League victory. Michael Terrafino powers out of the final corner at Motegi to win in the GT3 Fixed Series and take his first checkered flag in the PRL.
I think Kenny Duval made another mistake to try and get by Arango. He's actually coming down pit lane. I think Kenny Duval has hit the instant limit, and he's not going to be able to serve that before the line. Kenny Duval is going to be struck with a 30-second penalty. What could have been a podium. Do the math. He's probably going to be outside the top 20, unfortunately.
You got Michael Schumacher away out of this one, unfortunately, so Kenny Duval will drop from what was a promising race. What a race at the front, though. They both threw everything they had at it, and after Floyd Kerr came out on top at Road America, it's now 2 weeks, 2 winners in this GT3 Fixed Series, Joey.
Yeah, and it wasn't the all-out, brawl that Road America race was. I think we were side by side with Rasmussen and Floyd Kerr for about a full lap at Road America, but there was just as much pressure on Michael Terrafino there. Bonatti was sticking with him. That gap was never really expanding or decreasing at all, so he had to be perfect, and he was completely perfect, and he's finally got that first win done. He was so good in the Ferrari last season, switches to the BMW, and again, he's taken it to the Porsches. He held off the optimal car, not in a suboptimal car necessarily, but less than optimal than the Porsche, and he beat it. He beat it at its own game.
So what lessons have you learned as we get ready now for the Sprint Series and the slightly longer race in an open setup field?
Be very, very careful at turn 11. That's the main lesson that I think everybody's going to learn. Everybody knows that coming into Motegi. It's a tricky corner. It's tricky elevation change. But when you're in an even bigger field in that GT3 Sprint Series than in this GT3 Fixed Series, if you spin on lap 1, you're going to have to let even more cars by. If you spin further on in the race, you're even going to have to let even more cars by. It's going to be an even tougher task to recover from any mistakes. And that's the main mistake spot that we've seen.
Let's have a quick look at your race results as the Team Beef BMW will work to the pit lane and to victory lane. It's a first career victory for Michael Terrafino in the Precision Racing League. Andre Benatti in the Porsche pushed him all the way to the very end. The We Race Esports car just over 3/10 behind at the line. Matthias Arangua, the privateer, completes the podium, taking advantage of the mistake of Kenny Duval. Well, Angelo Velos and Sully Saad will round out the top 5. That 079 machine, after struggling maybe a bit at the early portions of this race, able to hold on at the end. SRT Esports slides into 6th, while Duval in the Clow Valve Racing South entry drops to 7th, was able to serve the penalty before getting to the line. Brandon 6 down from 6th to 8th with Dave Peterson. And Nick Silver completing the top 10, only 6, not making any positive progress in this race. Errol Orexoy in the number 13 Vulture Motorsports BMW 11th, with Nicholas Karangis in the Throttle Thursday 331 behind him. Dale Peterson, Andrew Rasmussen and Roy Brown. The top 15 with another of the Clow Valve Racing North entries, this time the 77 16th, Martinez, Cowgill, Colaga, Costello. The top 20. As always, a big old field, but most cars able to stay on the lead lap of those. Vanco, Colaga, Chandler, Glover, Carollo, Chef, Bray, DeHamel, Cohen, and McGellen make up the top 30, and we'll cycle through those final names. 36 cars finishing on the lead lap out of 46 starters. There wasn't too much chaos. I get the sense, I get the feeling we're in for some more later on tonight.
We definitely are. I'm just hoping that some of our drivers talk to us. I want to talk to Michael Terrafino. He's finally got the win done, so hopefully he's finding his way up to the booth here. But I couldn't be more excited for the GT3 Sprint Series. We've got 2 races in one. It's a Pro-Am split. This GT3 Fixed Series is the undercard series of sorts. It's a 2,500 iRating cap. This is where you go to really strengthen your GT3 skills. And then we go up to the main card of the night, the GT3 Sprint Series, where there is a Pro-Am split, and the pros are pretty darn pro, if I do say so. It is a very, very scary field. I talked about it last week, but there's so many champions, there's so many large iRating numbers. It is a very, very terrifying field.
So before we look at what's left tonight, let's look forward to what we've got coming up next time out, because it is going to be a fun one. I did mention the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta plays host to the next round of this Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series, and of course the GT3 Sprint Series as well. But it's a track known for its elevation, its undulation, and its tightness. It's one where you can pass. It takes bravery, like we saw some try tonight.
And it's high speed, high commitment all the way around. Motegi, a very, very technical track. Road America, kind of the best of both worlds, frankly. Mixing a couple technical sections with the high speed sections like Road Atlanta has, but Road Atlanta, all out, all the time, high speed. It's easy, it's possible to pass. I can't say it's easy to pass, but you can pass at Road Atlanta. And I am very much looking forward to taking on Road Atlanta next week. It's always a good race to go to Road Atlanta in the Precision Racing League, and GT3 cars, they're basically designed for this place.
Well, and I think the important thing as well, I didn't realize this, and when I was told this, it blew my mind. Turn 7, the one that runs you onto the back straightaway, is tighter than 90 degrees, and therefore, as a result, you do need to be aware of that when you're setting yourself up for that run out of the corner, because it will be one of the most crucial spots. Of course, we're ready for the pro drivers to get underway. I say pro drivers, I mean sprint drivers. It's the same schedule, though, of course, as we saw for the Fixed Series, but now a slightly longer race, and we head back to Twin Ring Motegi. 40 minutes, 50% fuel tanks, and we did see the Porsches clearly quite strong.
Yeah, this is Twin Ring Motegi, but I promise, I'm not going to repeat myself for the rest of this intro, but same calendar. You've got that to look forward to for the rest of the season. The fixed race always sets the tone for the night, and the sprint race really pops the rest of the action off. More fuel in the tanks. Still going to be a required pit stop. Not even Sean Campbell, I don't think, is going to be able to pull off some sort of miracle on pit lane or not on pit lane and go to the end of the race without a stop. But here's the driver standings. I mentioned Sean Campbell. He dominated Road America last week. Motegi's very different, though. We'll see if he can still do it.
Yeah, and again, it's somewhat academic to be looking at these points as they run right now, because it is basically just the finishing order from a week ago. So, you know, keep that in mind as we take a look at this. But it is going to be close. Sean Campbell, quick in every single car that you put him in, and he is someone that we will be seeing this coming year in so many different platforms as well. So always great to see Sean. I just hope he doesn't look at us the same way he did last time when he crossed the line.
He will.
No, that's not allowed on RaceSpot anymore. We've made the decision. Executive decision.
He should be disqualified if he does that. We're going to delete his win tonight if he looks into the camera. And that's good for Diego Morales. He picked up the pieces last week. There were other drivers who aren't actually here in the top 10 who showed speed. Ted Lowendick was on for a top 5, Sean Campbell's teammate. He lost it on literally the final lap, fell out of the top 5. Ryan Pucktel was strong. Nick McLaughlin's going to be back on form soon. Last season's GT3 Fix champion, Danik Van Daly, wasn't on pace at Road America, but he's definitely going to be more on pace here tonight. I am very much looking forward to this qualifying session. It's the merger of 5 champions from the PRL last season and all the other stars of the GT3s. It is such a fantastic field. I'm going to keep repeating myself in that aspect at least.
And we saw just how stacked up the field can get through the final corner to get ready to go racing. So again, qualifying is going to be important. Let's have a quick look at the Teams Championship and break them up into Pro and Am. Sean Campbell, RSR by Butt Kicker, of course, always interesting to see how they'll fare out. But ASR Esports Chrome lead. We Race Esports coming off a 2nd and 4th in the Fix Series. Now look to back that up in the slightly longer Sprint Series.
And Diego Morales is the headliner of that We Race Esports squad. Diamaso Meto Jr. as well was consistent. He was running top 5 speeds as well before he got taken out by the RSR by Butt Kicker spin from Ted Lowendick, so maybe a little bit of rivalry between them two. And as they fell apart, ASR Esports always on the scene. They were the ones who picked up the pieces with Genet, Vincent Trepanier, and Caven Norris, who actually managed to finish a race for once without getting taken out by somebody, which was pretty incredible.
Yeah, there are some drivers that don't want me commentating on their races anymore because I have this nasty habit of commentating on them crashing. At least for Bo Albert, we got that monkey off his back, so that is good. Again, remember, we got another 35 minutes, or we've had 35 minutes, we've got another 40 minutes of racing to come, with practice just about to finish and qualifying will get underway. Green flag estimated in about 13 minutes time for that 40-minute race, so stick around for the Precision Racing League Sprint Series. Tuesday night GT3s, of course. Tomorrow we have the Truck Series. Thursday is the doubleheader of Formula 4 and Formula 3. And Joey, you are no longer a competitor in the PRL because you have vacated the cockpit to pick up the mic a little bit more full-time.
Correct. My presence is no longer required on the Formula 3 grid, and everybody else can... They can take different people out on the start of the race. I got taken out twice last season. I'm still bitter on the start line by stalled cars. I'm just kidding. I'm not bitter at all. I closed it out on a high. I rode Atlanta. I can't be disappointed at all, and I'm so happy to actually be in the booth calling those Formula 3 races, because it's like an out-of-body experience almost. It's like, oh, look, it's not me fighting with Takeshi Kita anymore. It's his other teammates.
Love this look from up above. You see the road course cut under the oval, first through turns 1 and 2, the middle of that, and then just before the entry, turn 3 at the top left of your corner. It's a different challenge building a road course around an oval rather than building a roval like we tend to see a little bit more in the US, Joey.
It's literally a twin ring, and I'm trying to think of other places in the world where this happens, and there's not really many. There's a road course in like the parking lot of Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I guess you could consider that Twin Ring Las Vegas, but this is one of the most, if not the most unique tracks in the world, and I personally have to endorse Twin Ring Motegi. I'm sorry if our friends at Honda Japan are watching, but Mobility Resort Motegi.
It does not, it does not ring as well, does it?
Sounds like an old people's home. It's like, oh, we're going to Mobility Resort Motegi. You're gonna learn how to walk again or something. That's not a racetrack name. It's a valiant effort. It's a good place to be, but it's not a racetrack.
So qualifying about to start. Predictions. I'm going to throw you on the spot right here, right now.
Well, it's pretty easy because Sean Campbell's going to be on pole. I can guarantee that much. In the AM class, though, that's been the interesting one so far. Well, we've only had one race, so of course so far this season, but last season it was McLaughlin and Patrick who were the 2 AM regulars in the top of the timesheets. They won every single race in that season, but now it's been opened up. McLaughlin's been advanced to the pro class, finally. Patrick's still down there. but Rob Campbell was the one who ended up on top. Marc-Andre Desjardins always fast in qualifying. I can go on forever. The AM class is so evenly matched, it's almost impossible to predict who's going to be on pole.
It's always curious as well how drivers take to the Pro-Am categories, because there is ego that gets involved here when there really should not be, if we're being honest. I'm very curious to see how it plays out here tonight. We have plenty of onboard cameras to walk through, so we are very much looking forward to showcasing those over the course of the night. But as qualifying gets underway, I remind you, it is two different races, as we've been talking about, Pro and Am within the same track. Qualifying 10 minutes of solo car qualifying. You can't play any games with the draft, but now we think about the compromises, Joey, about downforce through the corners and stability through the slower corners in particular, and slipperiness down the straights.
You want a little bit of slipperiness. There's not really an especially long straight. The straight between turn 10 and turn 11, that's the main place where you can really let your GT3 engine sing. But other than that, it is a very, very technical track. It's a very corner-heavy track. There's going to be a lot of bias, I'm sure, towards higher downforce setups, towards setups that are going to take you through all 14 of those corners better. And you're going to suffer a little bit on this straight between turn 10 and turn 11, but luckily everybody's going to be suffering exactly the same, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Say a distinctive paint scheme, I'll call it that, for Nick McLaughlin in the 37. His Porsche winds up through the final corners, and he'll start qualifying with 2 minutes and 20 seconds already works off the clock. He's really taking his time right now. But
these lunatic liveries are always interesting, and they've changed up the colors this season. They're not all exactly the same.
Good.
Nick is in this green and black one. Alex Wright in the Lamborghini. We saw him in like the purple and white one, but they've all got that funky stuff. And if we ride on board with Nick McLaughlin, if you look up at his banner, there it is. There's that. I asked him what this was, and he didn't tell me. I said it looked like a pig sitting on a coronavirus, and he didn't expand any further. He didn't tell me.
Yeah, I never want to see this view again, so mental note, never ride on board with Nick McLaughlin from that camera viewpoint again. I think in terms of qualifying, though, did see this, that there wasn't much improvement through the course of the session for the fixed series. Now in the sprint series, we take a look at those weather conditions. It's only going to get warmer from here, and maybe it's going to be the same trend where these first laps are your fastest laps.
They might be your fastest laps. And also, with higher temperatures, with hotter temperatures at a track where you're almost constantly turning left and right, you've got to start thinking about your tire temperatures. You've got to start thinking about maybe backing off earlier on in the race, not completely destroying those tires to kick off the stint, because overheating is very, very easy to do. And in a place like this where you're constantly turning, it's almost impossible to bring the tires down. It's almost impossible to cool them down, because there's no respite. There's like two straights.
I'm just saying this is a much better camera shot from Nick McLaughlin's car. Down the hill. Track falls away from you slightly, pushes you wide as you work, and look how much of the track they use to set up into this final sequence. Tight on the first part to sweep through the second part with plenty of speed and get onto the power nice and early. McLaughlin will be one of the first to get lap times on the board as they're starting to come in thick and fast with about half the session still left to play. It's a 48.895. That's the benchmark right now. It's Morales on top.
And Nick McLaughlin loses it through turn 2. That was a very, very lazy spin, so he's going to have to come back down to pit lane and go for a second run. There is Sean Campbell, and it is pole by only 2.5 tenths, though. So that's beatable, I think. That's only 2.5 tenths. Somebody can definitely beat that. Look, Quote down to 2 tenths. Somebody can beat that. They got to.
Only a quarter of a second, yes. Only a quarter. Draft here will help you keep up. There really isn't too many chances to break away. You would say that this section might be the best of them. Highest of your AMs right now, Rob Campbell, 10th overall. Only about 9/10ths off the pace of Campbell as it sits right now, and we'll have 4 cars between him and Blake Ziti in 15th, the second of the AMs, as they stand right now. So, of course, still plenty of time left to go in this qualifying session. Now, I've got good news and I've got bad news for you. Which one do you want first?
Yes.
I guess they are one of the same. Sean Campbell is not sending us his camera feed tonight.
Ah, boo.
Like I said,
he's not going to send us an interview either if he wins. So
is he really not?
You got it, Sean Campbell. This is an order. If you're listening to the broadcast right now, you better be here for an interview. If you're not turning your camera on, you better be here.
I agree. I think we forced this. Finesca in the 11, now second of the AMs in 15, jumps in front of ZT. Trepanier will come through the final corner. Another Porsche at the front of the field. It seems to be the staple car this week. Caruso to 9th in front of Norris. As the 87 powers to the line, it's an improvement to second, and half a tenth will split Trepanier from Sean Campbell, still yet to start his final laps in qualifying.
You can find another half-tenth, Vincent. I know you've got it in you. If he can do it, Puoti can do it, Morales can do it. There's a lot of drivers who can really take the fight to pole here. And pole isn't decided either. Miguel Angel Fonseca put in a good lap. He's still a little bit further down than Rob Campbell, who's actually beating some pros here tonight, which is always the interesting dynamic. He was on the podium last week in AM. Oh, look at that. There's an orange and black. Like I said,
like
different colors.
Yeah, no,
looks a little bit rusty.
Yeah, no, but I can get behind this orange and black combination. That is for sure. And it makes, if you make a commentator's life easier, we will be your friends forever. It's as simple as that. We are simple things to please.
Yes, we're like children. You just put a bright color in front of us, and we're like, oh, look at that. It's a bright color.
You say colors, so, just put a race car in front of most of us.
Exactly, and Colin McKenzie is the mastermind behind all this. So he's the guy we have to blame, apparently, for the pigs and stuff.
We ride on board with Campbell through turn 1. You can just, oh, never mind. Campbell loops it. Showcases what not to do through turn number 1, and immediately says, no more, I'm done.
And he's still on pole by like half a second, so he'll be fine unless Miguel Angel Fonseca can find something. Blake Ziti, though, was the driver who won in AM last week. He finally got his first PRL win, and he's third right now in AM, I think, as everything scrolls through. But still a couple of drivers in contention for pole. Martin Crisp, P5, only 3/10 off. Is it realistic for him to find 3/10 on this lap? I think potentially, and I'm trying to load up more Crisp jokes, but Arjun, I think you have a more viable accent for Crisp jokes.
Fair enough, although I try and reserve those jokes for when the engine goes boom, because then you can make some quite funny ones. Through the final corner comes a SimCity racing car. Black and neon, 48.96, his fastest. 3/10 off Campbell. Cortez to 6th. Chris does improve by just under a tenth of a second, but will remain in 5th spot on the inside of row 3.
Trepanier, is he going to have time? I'm doing the math in my head right now. Yes, he will. He will have time to finish this lap. So this is his last chance. Mitchell in green is 6th. Sean Dickinson moves up to 7th. But Vincent Trepanier, he's racing against the clock. There's only like 10 seconds of leeway here, but he will make it to the line. This is just crunch time for him. And he's got to make this one work. And I'm just thinking now, I should have said crunch time for Martin Crisp.
Oh, yes, I was thinking the same. And let's point out as well, with Campbell binning it in turn 1, it's all on Trepanier right now. Campbell cannot respond. If the 87 finds that little bit of green, the sliver he needs, half a tenth of a second around a lap time of 1:48.642, it could not be Sean Campbell on pole position. And I think if he's not on pole, the complexion of this race changes. Trepanier through turn 9, though, I think, has just lost any time he had made up through the S's.
I think he did, just that little bobble. That could be more than that half a second. It's a short straight after turn 9, but it still is a little bit of straight line, and that time is just going to be going down and down and down and down. He might have lost like 2 or 3 tenths from that. He's got a few corners to go. The pesky turn 11, he nails it. That's a very, very solid run through turn 11, extends it all the way to the outside of the curb there. Trepanier knows the limits of this track, but one more corner to go. Has he lost everything from that little bobble in turn 9? He goes off again in the final corner. If he is going to improve, I don't even know if this lap is going to count, and he knows.
Yeah,
he knows it's not going to count.
I think invalidated it as soon as he put the 2 wheels on the grass there, and will come across the line in reverse. But with qualifying in the books, it is Campbell at the front once more, but by no means in dominant fashion. We're in for a treat here for the second of our GT3 doubleheaders. We're live from Twin Ring Motegi on the iRacing platform for Precision Racing League Tuesday night GT3s. Let's run you down through the starting grid for the GT3 Sprint Series as we get set for 40 minutes, a 50% fuel tank, and a pit stop window that is sure to make some drivers sweat with the tricky pit entry. It is Sean Campbell in the RSR by butt kicker number 26 that puts it on pole. A Porsche lockout of the front 3 rows. Vincent Trepanier in the ASR Esports Chrome machine. Team Championship points leaders outside of row 1 with Piotti for the Leo Racing team inside of the We Race Esports number 22 of Diego Morales. Martin Crisp and Mitchell Ian Green share row 3, while behind them we find the first of our non-Porsches in Sean Dickinson in the SimCity Racing 64, Gonzalo Cortez, another Porsche alongside. Kevin Norris and JR Williams 9th and 10th. 8 Porsches, 2 BMWs the top 10, with Keith Benila and Ryan Puchel 11th and 12th spots. Behind them, 13th and 14th, to use Arnaud Guest and Alex Caruso in the Hardpoint by Delta Sport Academy car, Conor Wagner, and the SRT Esports Black number 3, the final of the pros. Before the first of the AMs, Ron Campbell mopped down to 17th in the Lunatic Moonlight Speed Racing 93. He'll start inside of Demas Jr. for We Race Esports in a pro car. Mark McDonald and Ted Lowendick, the top 20. Then the second of the AMs with Miguel Finesca in 21st. Nick McLaughlin has plenty of work to do in 22nd, with 1 second splitting those front 11 rows. Final lap Sim Racing 23rd, with Blake Seaty, the winner 7 days ago, in his Audi in 24th. Brisson, Rector, Bergstrom, Dubé, Fain and Thurman make up the top 30, as again a monster field of cars will scroll through the rest of the names. But any shocks for you, Joey, as we get ready to go for an estimated 22 laps?
No real shocks, I would say. I guess I'm somewhat surprised to see our pole sitter from last week, Caleb Lehman, a little bit further back. Ryan Patrick as well, not the qualifying he would have liked. Jeff Evans for Whataback, around the middle of the field. He's in a decent position, I think. And then 52 cars here. Mark Kalin at the back of the field and Robert Goff at the back of the field, and then a couple other non-qualifiers. But everybody about where they should be. But Trepanier, critically, he might be where he should be, near Sean Campbell in second, but he's very, very close. There's no 4/10 pole gap like there was last week.
So there was some chaos at the start. Now we add even more fuel to the fire. 52 GT3s ready to go for 40 minutes in the land of the rising sun. It's Sean Campbell on pole. Trepanier will be looking to put the pressure on as we get underway with the second round in the fall. Great start from Campbell. Trepanier under pressure as Piotti looks to the inside of the run into turn 1. 2 wide through the field as they streak into 1. Single file for the top through as the Leo Racing Team car slots into 3rd. Tidy though in the top 10.
And not a good start from Piotti or from Trepanier there. They both really needed to pounce, I think, to take advantage of Sean Campbell on lap 1. Look at that dive by Diego Morales on Piotti. We're going to kill the cones in the background. That was a huge dive by Diego Morales, and he's actually going to check these guys up a little bit. Let Trepanier be extra comfortable in second.
I think we went 3 wide on the entry into 3 as well. Not sure that was the wisest of things, but now here is when the gaps will start to build up, because we saw this with the fixed setup competition into 6. Bit of bumper cars being played. Porsche pushed wide as they funnel down underneath the oval. Great camera shot though as we watch the speed and the intensity of these cars as we still wait for tires to come up to temperature. Campbell around in the AM lead. A pro car goes with him into the kitty litter as well. Drama on lap 1.
They tried to go 3 wide there. I think it was a Ted Lowendick sandwich, and Rob Campbell on the outside ended up, unfortunately, being the loser in that scenario at turn 6. You can't really go 3 wide approaching turn 7, and that's so disappointing when you're Rob Campbell on pole getting taken out by 2 pros. But that's the dynamic that can come in a Pro-Am split. Sometimes you're not racing against people for position, and they still manage to take you out.
That camera shot that we had, which showed the cars down this back straightaway and those still working through 9 into 10, showed the strength, or rather the size of field that we've got here. Trepanier wide, down through turn 11, will compromise him through the final corner. Now Sean Campbell has got to take advantage, but I did mention earlier, egos will be a thing with an AM versus Pro split. You said it, Campbell taken out by no responsibility of his own. It will sting, but at the end of lap 1, it is Campbell from Trepanier, Morales, Piotti, Ian Green, the top 5. To be fair, it has not split up as much as it did with the fixed series earlier tonight.
Even with Trepanier's mistake at the exit of turn 11 where he dipped it off in the grass, he's still keeping touch with Sean Campbell. It's just still a full second. Now 9/10 of a second, he brought it down a little bit. And there's a little bit of trouble in the back of the field. No, it's just cones being flung around. I got tricked and we're riding on board with Kevin Norris now, who just got by Ryan Pucktell within that flurry of cones. So he wasn't distracted. I was.
Well, and you also saw just how much he was moving the arms there. Mood lighting, I love it. We'll scroll through some of these drivers and their setups, but I think it is about getting into that right mental environment and state as well. So Kevin Norris has found a comfortable home in his virtual Porsche 911, a car that we are going to be saying goodbye to at the end of this year as we say hello to a brand new GT3 competitor from our friends at Porsche, to come along, of course, with the new LMDH car. Plenty of excitement in the world of sports car racing as we head forward into 2023. Look at this shot. You can just see how far the action stretches. We turn our attention to the replay, though, and it's fair to say Rob Campbell getting turned.
Yeah, that was a sandwich between two M's. Miguel Angel Fonseca is that Audi in the middle. Ted Lowendick is the Porsche in the middle, and then Rob Campbell on the outside. I don't know, you could say Rob Campbell squeezed a little bit there, but also you tried to put 3 cars wide in turn 6, and that was never going to work out. So I don't think you could put the blame on anybody really there. You got to put the blame on every single driver in that situation for putting it 3 wide like that.
And then Caleb Lehman had his own little off-track excursion. Now, Porsches are known for having some competence in rally, but it's definitely not what you intend to do. And the final of our start cycle replays is a bit of a bumper car moment there for Tyler Campbell, who does find his way back onto track, albeit quite considerably further down. As I said, that I think we just had another little moment we'll turn our attention to very quickly. And it's again through the final corner. It's Rines, and he just gets pinched, or rather pinches maybe a Porsche there.
Hard to go side by side there. I can't really tell you who was at fault there, but when you've barely got a nose inside, you're almost always at fault. But Christopher Rines down to the back of the field he goes, and you just saw that dive as we cut back. Gonzalo Cortez, always easy to see in the bright red car. He took Mitchell Ian Green to the cleaners on the inside there. That was a huge dive. That was Kenny Duval style.
I like that we're going to be able to reference actions from earlier tonight in these longer races, because we have kind of seen it. I wonder if some of these drivers have been half paying attention as well to what's going out on track, but not necessarily sure. Manufacturer check very quickly, by the way, because it's always interesting how it has been shaking up. Porsche domination with some BMWs in the mix as well.
We're going to scroll through here. The furthest forward that a car is that isn't a Porsche or a BMW is a Mercedes. I think Alec Bergstrom is currently running on the podium in AM. Look at this for another dive. Gonzalo Cortez is the next driver to try and get Mitchell Ian Green. That time Mitch is able to close off the attack, but Mitch is just getting attacked here. He's a driver who's usually at his strongest at the end of the race, kind of picking up the pieces, saving those tires, saving all of his speed for the end, and Gonzalo Cortez took advantage of it, and now Martin Crisp is trying to do it as well.
You threw me under the bus. It was Crisp that went forward. You said that Cortez was looking to get on the move. Look at the different lines being run there as well. Tighter line all the way through the corner from Crisp. Ian Green swings it out wide and V's it back in, rather like how I run Luffield at Silverstone. It's one of those corners where you can have a couple of different lines.
Yeah, Martin's line is more crisp on the inside. On the exit, though, tries to clip the grass a little bit, high speed, then under braking into turn 5. It's almost like a turn 11 copy, just a little bit flatter, or turn 4 rather. It's almost like turn 11, just a little bit flatter, easier to make it through. And then up the hill we climb, the most difficult part of the track to keep the rhythm. Turn 5 and turn 6 basically flat out, and then the S's of 7 and 8, they're tighter than you think they are. It's not like Fania, it's Spa, where it's kind of 90 degree. It's tighter than that in both aspects of it, but they all snake through. Everybody's figured out Motegi in this train here, which makes for a little bit of a holding pattern. We're going to see some drivers driving their way through the field. Let's go all the way to the back of the train. Ted Lowendick's trying to recover after getting sandwiched on lap 1.
And I love the webcams that we get, and you'll note 2 points of history here. Of course, you've got the monster over the left shoulder, but Danica Patrick, the first ever female winner of an IndyCar Series race. It happened here at the Oval, so there's plenty of history around this track, and as per usual, there's at least one driver with an interesting background for us to look at.
Yeah, that's the Ted counter. I can't even think of words anymore. I'm just distracted by how he's brought Godzilla back from last season. He's patented. It's patented. It's patent Ted Ted Lowendick style.
There you go.
Yeah, the words have just been taken out of my mouth by that.
I asked Hugo, I wanted to do PRL, and I wanted to work with Joey. I forgot what I was getting myself into when it came to some of these puns, though.
You can't blame that's Ted's thing. You see anything he ever writes, when he puts up the practice sessions for these for the GT3 sessions on like Monday night or Tuesday night, whenever they do them, it always says host Ted sessions. He must have that like baked into his phone to automatically capitalize the Ted.
Yeah, he's got a macro. Definitely. Ooh, Caruso wide in the hard point by Delta Sport Academy car, and now that is a very nasty place to have to spin it around and get going. He's dropped from inside of the top 15 to 26th position, and that was another hard hit as he's still trying to keep it on the black stuff.
I wonder if there's another spin behind him, one of the ASR cars.
Desjardins, I believe. Yes.
Again, second week in a row, Desjardins spins into the Armco. He got taken out of Road America last week with the melee after the kink, and now that looked like that was just an unforced error from Desjardins. Fortunately, that's the first real Porsche victim I think we've seen so far tonight. That's the first spin. There's Caruso hitting the wall, and that looks like he was just retiring it.
Yeah, I think we need to see this whole sequence. So we go a little bit further back on the run down in towards turn 3. Now, so he murders some cones and then gets... okay, so that is why the subsequent contact happened. Because if we watch the steering, I will put... Yeah, it's not straight. I was going to say I'll put any amount of money. That is not a controllable car.
Yeah, that wasn't heavy contact with Dimas Ometo Jr., but it just killed that Porsche, which is normally pretty hardy in terms of contact. But bad luck for Caruso. He just got wiped there, and then more straightforward accident for Desjardins. The Porsche loops around, clipped the curb a little bit, but just too much speed, and you lose it, and it's impossible to save. And that's a destroyed Porsche again.
You spin me right round, that is for sure. Sean Campbell taking a couple of liberties with track limits. Not being allowed to break away. Trepinier's right there. The top 3 split by 1.5. Top 4 by 2.5. So, bit of a breakaway with Cortez. The link between the breakaway at the front and the peloton further back, with Ian Green seeing a bit of a train forming up behind him. But we look at pit cycles in the same way that we did with the fixed setup series, Joey, where if someone goes early, the risk is about being dropped into lap traffic.
And you basically will get dropped into lap traffic, at least talking about right now. With about a 30-second pit delta, there's still a train going all the way to the back of this field right now. There's not huge separations. There's not huge gaps really anywhere on the track. And I don't think there will be for quite a while. So you're going to be waiting until you're looking on that relative sheet. Is there like a 4-second gap that I can fit into? And if there isn't, I'm just going to have to wait for as long as humanly possible and hope that everybody else comes in before me, or at least at the same time as me, and then I won't have to drive through.
You can see here the battle for the M-Class lead, with Bergstrom in the Mercedes in front of the Audi of Francesca. I hope I've got
Fonseca.
Fonseca, yes, sorry. I was more concerned that I just mixed cars up around because we were looking from quite far out on board with Fonseca, and in fact jump on board with a man in virtual reality. We see so many different setups. Look at the focus. Look at the way that he's able to look into the corner as well. Whenever you look at eye tracking from real world drivers, Joey, they're looking at the next corner, not the one they're going through.
And especially through those final couple of corners, you have to be looking at the next corner that you're trying to navigate, because it's right ahead of you, and I've just been distracted. Ted Lowendick in one of those Porsches is down pit road early. Is this a legitimate strategy move to pit with 28 minutes to go to get out of that huge train? He can definitely make it on fuel to the end, because we saw the drivers in the last race coming in with about 10 minutes to go or so.
Whoa.
So he could make it to the end, but he's just barely going to get out ahead, and he is going to find that one gap that exists on track.
But then you look up ahead and there's another gaggle of cars. She's got some clean air, yes, but by no means is this optimal. With 30 minutes left to go, we've already got 12 of these minutes under our belts. I've got to say, Joe, my first, time, full-time being on a PRL broadcast, it's a lot of fun. I see why you like doing all of these.
Yeah, it helps when there's about 17,000 drivers in the field, because there's always something to watch,
right.
And the GT3 Fix Series, always a hefty field. Every series this season has a huge field, which is fantastic. It's fantastic for the health of the series, and it's fantastic for this little stupid product that we're putting on RaceSpotTV. There's always something for you people at home to watch.
Well, I said we didn't get a camera from Sean Campbell. I have to eat those words. We get the foot cam. We get to watch the dance on the pedals as Campbell extends the lead. Now 1.2 and building, in fact. Not technically out of drafting range, but Campbell is trying. Watch him stamp on the anchors, the Fanatic pedals underneath him. Trail breaking the release of the pedal as the weight transfers back out of the front to the rear of the car, and then stamp on the power. And I always enjoy these little looks. Socks for Campbell. I'm a shoe person myself, Joey. I feel more comfortable, especially for longer races, on these pedals, which you can put a lot of pressure into, having actual footwear on my feet.
I always find that shoes are too thick. If you have like race boots, that can kind of work because those are basically socks with how thin they are. But like if I'm putting my sneakers on, if I'm putting the M&S loafers I had to get when I was in London because my other shoes decided to stab me, like I'm going to be completely numb on those pedals.
Dubé gets sent around by the Audi.
No.
I think Thomas Dunn was the one that did the turfing there. There was a clumsy mistake, I think, initially that made the Porsche check up, and it compounded from there.
Oh, and another one spins in front of him, one of the Lamborghinis, and that's destruction. The 21. That's Darren Rutherford.
Yep. Now Rob Campbell.
And Rob Campbell as well.
Oh, my word. Yeah, like I said, with this many cars, you can look everywhere and there's something going on.
That's not a corner you normally expect to see people constantly throwing it off the road at turn 3, but it was just sucking everybody out there.
Front to the field. Bit of a breakaway starting from Campbell. Trepanier feeling the pressure from Morales and Poiti. Cortez truly now in no man's land. 2 seconds separates him from the front four. 3 seconds separates him from Mitchell Ian Green and the continued train that continues to build behind. Yet another lap will be ticked away. 8 out of now an estimated 22. Have to wait and see if anyone's going to try and be bold with the pit stop cycles, as that is David Van Roy around at 9.
David Van Roy was in the fight for the podium, I think, right there. He was up there with Caleb Lehman and Fonseca and Alec Bergstrom, but at the back of the field, well, this is the first AM spin. This is when Eric Dubé got taken out of the fight for the podium, and then we're going to see a couple more Porsches just drive it off on the outside. Dubé's recovering. Then you see Darren Rutherford lose it on the outside. And then next up, I think, is Rob Campbell coming onto the scene.
No, it was Colin McKenzie. It was Colin
McKenzie.
Yes, no, I was trying to figure that one out myself. I think then we had a subsequent another issue for, again, Desjardins in his Porsche. Ooh, and I tell you what, with this rear-engine car, I would be scared about that one, especially given how these drivers will be compromising on setups.
It's always scary when every single driver who seems to be spinning is in the same car as you, because you're starting to think, how can I avoid making that same mistake? And all these guys are so practiced. These are drivers who are doing practice races before Tuesday night. They're in the official races. They're running those 3-hour Ted Lowendick hosted sessions. They know what's going to happen. They know the behaviors of this car. But sometimes you can be so comfortable with the car, and when it decides to bite, you can be as comfortable with it as you want, and there's still no saving it because it's just going to go around. The ABS and stuff is going to throw you around, and I think Keith Bonilla has just found the same thing in the BMW.
They're dropping like flies, one by one. We had a decent rate of attrition in the first race of the night, but Motegi is well and truly taking no prisoners as Bonilla is very much stricken for the time being. Let's see if we can pick up exactly what happened to him, because I think he's been there for a while as well, because at one point he was inside of the top 15. It's into 9. There's a Porsche down his inside, and yeah, 2 does not go into 1 there as the 57 of Connor Wagner in the battle for 12th made some contact.
And it looked to me like he was already losing it. It looked like Bonilla was already half spun before Connor Wagner even got to the back of him. So I think he was going around either way, unfortunately. And that was a strong run for Keith Bonilla. It was a great qualifying. He was keeping pace in the train, but now he's gonna fall back to the back of the train, and he's gonna be added to the list of drivers we're gonna watch driving their way through the field again.
These are not long races. These very much are sprint races. The key is in the series title. Series schedule does follow, of course, the official iRacing GT Sprint VRS series schedule, so these drivers get at least some analogous racing at some point. Battle for the top 4 is closed up again, by the way, with Motegi just 2.2 away from Campbell at the front. If it's not going to get done on track, it will get done in pit lane. We saw this with those fixed setup leaders. It was execution in pit lane that allowed the BMW to stretch the advantage and hold the lead despite the attempted undercut.
And I am getting flashbacks to the GT4 fixed series last season where Sean Campbell won every single race. He won 10 out of 10 that season. This is the kind of race he would run a lot of the time there. He would kind of check up the train a little bit, you know, let Trepanier, let Morales, let Puoti kind of bring that down, run one by one, let him get close, and then while you're doing that, you're saving a bunch of fuel, and you're going to leave him in the dust in the pits by taking like a full second less of fuel somehow, and then coast off into the sunset. Or maybe he's just struggling right now. It's impossible to tell until he finally comes down.
Yes, but you never want to play with your food, play with your prey. There has to be a limit as Kevin Norris gets in front of J.R. Williams in that battle for 9th and 10th positions. Fonseca, made sure I said it properly, has now put a car between him and his AM rival, Alec Bergstrom. So that is crucial as the Audi will now try, heading into this pit stop cycle, to consolidate the class lead. 19th, the best of the AMs. There are some pros filtering down below. Plenty of them retiring as well, with the likes of Lyndon Swaby, Keith Bonilla, Alex Caruso, and Justin Rector, 4 to name, having retired. 52 has been whittled down to just 47.
Yeah, just 47 cars left. Just 47 left. And one of those pro drivers who is deeper in the field, I'm just going to give an update because it's an interesting strategy move. Ted Lowendick, watch, the driver who brought it down pit lane after 5 laps, I think, in this race, 6 laps. He's basically doing the opposite strategy to everybody else. He has navigated through that little gaggle of lapped cars. We saw him come out behind, and now he's got 5 seconds ahead of him of completely clean track. I wasn't watching his lap times, to be completely honest, while he was navigating through those lapped cars, but he just ran a 150.9 on that last lap. That's comparable to just about everybody in the train up front. This could pay off for him when everybody else comes down in probably 10 more minutes.
Pushing a little bit wide there. There are plenty of looks up and down the fields in terms of battles. We jump on board with Pete Newhook up close in the Porsche 911. Currently running 8th in class. And they're all fighting for 5th. In front of him, Brett Thurman, Turner Schroll, and Alan Roth. Within a further 3.5 seconds up the road to Caleb Lehman, and a bit of a mistake there down the hill. Almost opened the door for an opportunity into this final corner as Roth feels the pressure.
That bright blue Hardpoint by Delta Sport car, or rather it's the Hardpoint by Delta Sport Academy car, I believe, for Turner Schroll in this series. He was really putting the pressure on through the final corners, but Alan Roth was not phased. He just kept his line. He ran perfectly, didn't make a single mistake, and that is exactly what you have to do when you're at the head of one of these trains. It is a textbook drive right now for Alan Roth. He has not made a single mistake. I say that, I'm sure, before he's going to make another mistake and throw it off the road, but I won't even say that. He's doing such a good job that he's avoiding the curse.
Commentator's curse is us real. I was just about to talk about Caleb Lehman as well, and well, commentator's curse may be preemptive there. I can confirm googly eyes on your VR headset do not give you an extra 50 horsepower, but adding RaceSpot stickers to your car will do that, so maybe a note for the future in that 42 machine.
And Caleb used to have a table back there with a space shuttle on it. He seems to have deconstructed that, so hopefully that's back for the next weeks. He's going to have damage on that Porsche now. He's going to be... Let's watch what happened to him. That's a huge hit. That's the same wall that we've seen a bunch of drivers hit. Turn 3 has really been the difficult corner. It's not turn 11 tonight. It's turn 3. He didn't even clip the grass. He just lost it midway through the corner. Just Porsche completely snapped. And that is a very, very damaged car. I would not be surprised to see him come down pit lane and get repairs, but it seems like it's okay somehow.
And it's that type of an incident that makes you wonder, what have they done with this setup in terms of making it loose? Because it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. loose is fast in terms of race cars. Whether you're on the high banks of Daytona in a stock car, whether you're here in a Porsche 911 at the front of the field here at I was about to call it Mobility Resort Motegi, but I stopped myself because it sounded so tragic. Twin Ring Motegi. Under the oval, they'll cut once more. Now, if Sean Campbell is saving fuel, we didn't necessarily see it on the pedal cam.
Or maybe just maybe, I'm thinking here, potentially the 20 seconds we saw of him on cam, I'm trying to think back. Was that before he started bringing the gap down a little bit? I don't know. And he has some tricks in his tank. Oh, we are going to ride on board with him now. We're going to watch the foot cam. Is this stream sniping? I'm still not esports enough to determine whether that's true. We're going to have to ask Connery about that. But
wait, it's not
it
just...
looks fair.
You don't
it looks
just,
very straightforward.
Yeah, you don't just look at the feet. You can hear it in the engine as well, right? Because if they get off the power, or, you know, as they used to do in iRacing, which is now kind of being fixed, but, you know, rode the clutch into the braking zone, you'd hear it. Just listen. It's straight,
not clutching and coasting.
Yeah, it's straight from throttle onto brake. There's no fuel saving going on right now, and the tempo has been quite consistent through the course of the 13 laps that we're about to have in the books.
This bodes very, very well for Vincent Trepanier. If Sean Campbell is pushing 100% here, Vincent has kept the gap down. We can watch, or we can look at Sean Campbell's lap times right now compared to the driver behind. Now he is starting to improve a little bit. He's been pulling away little by little by little over the last couple laps. Does that tell us that he was saving a little bit in the first half of this race? I don't know, but Vincent's still keeping him company. That 1.2 seconds is critical, because that's basically just one mistake at Motegi. You can make up 1.2 seconds.
Dickinson in the SimCity Racing BMW will roll to pit lane for his one and only time tonight. Will emerge just outside of the top 20, but should find some clean air. And that's, oh, look how beautiful that is. He'll come out alongside with Turner Schroll in the Hardpoint by Delta Sport Academy car, but now 5.5 seconds of clean air. Does not get much more perfect than that one. Has stretched out in this top 4 now. 3 seconds splits Campbell from Porty in the Leo Racing Team machine. I just wonder if now it's time for Campbell to go as we enter into the pit stop phase.
If he is going, it didn't work very well through the middle sector. Trepanier has just been keeping it in that 1.2 second range. It's almost like the battle for the lead in the previous race tonight. The gap never expands, but it never decreases either. I'm sure Trepanier is wishing that it would come down. He's wishing he could be a little bit closer to Sean Campbell and actually go for an attack. But right now, this is the best thing he can do. Just prevent that gap from expanding while Sean Campbell has turned the wick up just a little bit. And I still don't know when these pit stops are going to come. I imagine they're going to come in about 5-6 minutes at the absolute latest. And Trepanier just has to hope that he can find 1.2 seconds somehow.
Out of the third, final step of the podium starting to intensify. The Leo Racing Team car, a great run out of the final corner, an opportunity to look to the inside on that run into turn 1. Crisp and Ian Green fighting as well as pit stops underway. Commitment and bravery, but it won't pay off for the 61 immediately as Morales holds the inside on the charge to 3.
Porty thinks about moving to the inside. I don't know if there's a little bit of a bump there, but he does get to the inside under braking. Again, Morales is trying to fight back, but you can't fight back for that long, and he's going to lose out on third there. Porty finally elects to get aggressive. Great move, clean move. Left Morales just barely enough room, and he should be able to defend here into turn 4, but that's an excellent braking zone by Diego Morales to stay around the outside. Eventually he has to back out of it, though. He probably could have kept it around there, but there's no point continuing that fight when you can get back in line.
It's great fighting, but they've lost now 2.5 seconds basically to second place. It's become Campbell versus Trepanier. So Leo Racing Team and Porty, they don't have much time to make up the ground that they lost with the fight. So it's now full focus forward and qualifying laps until the end of this race. It's likely as simple as that. I've only seen about 6 or 7 cars make pit stops so far. David Van Roy in the AM class will roll onto pit lane this time by Pete Newhook leaving pit lane. Likely to see maybe a couple more cars start to roll in with about 9 minutes left to play in this one. Campbell and Trepanier still only split by about 1 second.
Let's see, is this the time where we see one of our leaders come in for the first time? No, of course not. Still a little bit too early. There's still so many cars left out on track. Like you said, only 3 pros, maybe 4 pros, have brought it down the pit lane. There's the marching ants down at the bottom. Where is there a gap on track that you can fit into if you come down pit lane? Great question. There might not be one.
There are some pockets, but I'm not sure how big they really are. Wagner will lead a couple of cars to pit road, so maybe it is now that indication of drivers wanting to come. Guinness, McDonald, McLaughlin, excuse me, not McLaughlin and McDonald. A couple more will come down to the lane. And now we see the difference in terms of execution. Practice. Who has understood the pit entry here at Twin Ring Motegi? Gap has not really closed down just yet, as third and fourth try and minimize the disadvantage that they have after fighting side by side. Trepigny is starting to lose ground though. 1.6 now splits him from the leader.
It's interesting because he really brought that gap down quite a bit through the first sector, and then he lost it all again through the second sector, expanded to exactly the same gap as it was before that lap started. So he's clearly faster in some places, but that's the dynamic once more. When you're equal with another driver, it's not always you're equal with them through every single sector. Sometimes you have your better places on the track. Sean Campbell will have his better places on the track, and unfortunately it just evens out. He's actually going to lose 0.2 on this lap. Well, the lap's not over yet, but over the course of the rest of the lap, he's lost 0.2. Now it goes north of 0.3 through turn 11. Trepigny might be struggling just a little bit, but pit stops have to come soon. Here we go.
Yeah, to the right they come. Scary helmet from Sean Campbell. That's all I'm saying. I only got the briefest glimpse at it. But your leaders will roll to pit lane. All of the top 4 coming in. Cortez surely as well. So the money number was about 30 minutes of fuel. And now we have a pit party. Who executes the best? We're about to find out. The top 10 all in the lane. Sean Campbell, 9.4, a little bit longer than Trepigny, and there's only about a couple of car lengths that will split them as they roll out of pit lane, still locked in tow, first and second, third and fourth, a separate fight.
Miguel Angel Fonseca is somehow going to find another lap of fuel in this car. That's pretty incredible that he's going to be able to go around for another time. He's going to fall back eventually, of course, but might as well try and get that extra lap in some clean air as well. But Sean Campbell won the race off pit lane. That's exactly what he had to do. He was in the lane for half a second longer than Trepigny, but luckily he had that 1.4 second lead coming in, and he has a second lead, and he probably doesn't have to look back very much now because Trepigny was able to keep him company, but he wasn't able to get close enough to really look like a threat to pass, which is probably comforting for Sean Campbell, but he's still going to have to push for 10 more minutes.
Plenty of fights, of course. This is the battle for 7th provisionally. We'll bump up to 6th one. Fonseca dives to pit lane. Ian Green in front of Crisp, Dickinson, and Norris. Crisp has lost the place net since the start of this race. Everyone else not faring as badly as they run right now. So about 9 minutes. Have you already figured out how you want to get moves done, or are you still finding your opponent's weaknesses and trying to take advantage? Well, at the front of the field, you got to get close enough to make that stick, and you've got the Porsche and BMW from SimCity Racing locked in step with one another. I always find it interesting when teammates are in different cars.
So do I. There's a lot of those in this field. There's the SimCity Racing drivers. Last season, there was the ASR drivers who couldn't. Well, eventually they agreed on the Mercedes by the end of the season, but they were always diversified in different cars. The RSR drivers, I think, have all decided to bring the Porsche into their stable this season. But I mean, you're all in a team. You're just trying to fight together, but you can't share a setup in a sprint series if you're in 2 different cars, which is very strange. But I mean, clearly, if you feel like you're stronger in another car, you might as well stick with it. But it's still a weird dynamic.
You can try. No guarantee that it's going to be any sort of competent setup crossing from car to car. But yeah, the development, I guess, is something different. And even if you do run slightly different setups to your teammate, the base understanding and knowledge is important, as Dickinson makes a little bit of a hash of turn 4, and now might open the door for Norris, who in that 774 car has closed the back of this 4-car fight, which is now fighting for 6th spot.
A good exit by Cave, and Sean Dickinson did a good job of actually not throwing it off the road when he did make a hash of turn 3 there. And if Caven can stick with him, we've seen the Porsche be stronger here through these corners in this part of the track, the specific part of the track. Caven's a little bit quicker, but he's gonna have to send a dive here. 7 minutes to go. Talk about trying to orchestrate your moves here, trying to practice, maybe figure out a way by. You don't really have time for that right now. You've just got to send it whenever the chance comes to you. If he can stick with him out of the hairpin here, he'll have a shot into turn 11, but he's got to get the exit of his life here, and Dickinson's nailed it. Norris is pretty good. He might be close enough, and Chris might be close enough to Mitchell Ian Green as well.
Not just that about those two. I wonder if we might see Morales try and move further up through the field. 7 minutes or so left to go. The laps really are starting to tick on by. Dickinson, yet another mistake, this time just pushing wide down out of turn 11, compromising him through the final sector. Starting to feel the pressure. I think that's what we're starting to see. Replay up on your screen for something that happened on the run into turn 3. Drivers missing braking spots, bumper cars being played. It was Jeff Evans that initially lost out, and then Mark Kalin and Sepulveda came across the scene of a stricken car.
That looked like an instant Alt F4 for Mark Kalin. I can't blame him. It has been a horrific week. It's been a horrific 2 weeks in the PRL for Mark Kalin. He's been taken out in all but one race, and in the race where he wasn't taken out, he finished on the podium on the track, which I guess is some respite for that, but he has had such bad luck. He's been one of those drivers who the Cartoon Anvil has been following, and his teammate gets punted in front of him, and he gets taken out with it. So maybe we'll talk to Mark Kalin tonight. He might show up and commiserate with us, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of those interviews where I'm like, I don't know which way it's going to go, and I'm scared either way about how it is going to go. So, as it runs right now, we're watching Ryan Pucktel on the back of J.R. Williams, Porsche versus BMW. Again, as we check in with your manufacturers, very much Porsche flavor in this season, but Dickinson Williams fighting for the Bavarian BMWs, of course. The BMW M4 GT3 car, which shares a steering wheel in the real and virtual worlds, an interesting concept. I haven't managed to get my hands on one just yet, but I'm very curious what that wheel actually feels like.
They should get one of those wheels and put it on the sim rig for this BMW. Talk about extra realism. But under braking, J.R. Williams hangs tough. He's doing a great job of keeping Pucktel behind him. And interestingly, another dynamic that's going on here, of course, F3 cars, GT3 cars, they're both road course racing. You still share some driving skills between the two. But Ryan Pucktel was the F3 AM champion last season in the PRL. Connor Wagner was the F3 Pro champion last season in the PRL. In 2 Porsches, the AM champion's ahead of the Pro champion right now.
Yeah, that's true. There's so many, with this many drivers and a history book that you have compiled, which is very detailed, there are so many storylines to pick up and down through the field, that's for sure. Again, a little update on the field. 52 started, 44 left running. Sepulveda and Kalin, our 2 most recent retirees. We saw what happened to them on the exit of turn number 3. Front of the field, we check in with Trepigny as he continues to try and work on hunting down Campbell. Now, the gap between them and that battle for 3rd and 4th is held quite constant. It will mean that if they catch lap traffic and the battle closes up, they might fight. But as they run right now, coming to what should be an estimated 2 to go, it's Campbell in control.
There is a lapped car right ahead, Marc-Andre Desjardins. And you know what team he drives for? He drives for ASR Esports, as does the 2nd place driver, Vincent Trepigny. Now, I can guarantee you Marc-Andre Desjardins is not going to hold up Campbell. He's not going to be in the way, but Trepigny's probably thankful that he's got another purple car ahead of Sean Campbell. I'm trying to theorize a little bit of teammate maneuvering. I know it's not going to happen, but I kind of want it to happen. That'd be pretty dramatic.
You're the storyteller trying to tell the story that you know is unlikely to happen, but you wish
Exactly.
it would happen. I very much can appreciate what the heart wants, but we'll find out. With 3 minutes left to go, which Porsche emerges on top? JR Williams loses ground in his BMW. He's down to 14th, right side of his car with some scratches. Slots in behind Connor Wagner. I'm going to put 2 and 2 together and assume that JR Williams had an issue down at our good old friend Turn 11.
There it is. Turn 11 moment, but it's not a normal Turn 11 moment. It's different. That's how he got the scratch. He didn't actually lose it. He clipped the grass. He just went a little bit too wide. You can see he barely touched it. He was over the curb and then clipped the grass. Very, very lucky not to get into that outside wall. That was actually a great save, but he lost 5 positions in the process, unfortunately.
The gap came down to 4/10. Now, I'm not sure if it was traffic. It might have been, because I think Desjardins is still holding them up on the run into turn 9, but it's never been closer for the lead.
Campbell's been consistently slower than Trepanier for the last 2 laps. He was 3/10 slower last lap, 4/10 slower the lap before. There goes Marc-Andre Desjardins out of the way. He's going to stay out of the lead battle. Trepanier's not going to get any more help. There is Lyndon Swaby ahead, but I think he might be a little bit too far ahead. If he's going to make this move, he's got to get close, I think. About 3/10 closer out of the final corner if he wants to have any shot.
And it will be 1 to go this time by. So for Sean Campbell, can he continue the run of momentum from the previous seasons of the PRL by going 2 for 2 to kick off this GT3 Sprint Championship? Well, we're about to find out, because one more trip around Twin Ring Motegi, it's 6/10 that splits them for the lead.
About equal through the final corner. No mistakes from either of them. Trepanier is tantalizingly close, and they are actually going to catch Lyndon Swaby. Swaby was not able to keep pace like I thought he would be. Is he going to pull off to the right? Yes, he is. So very well done, Lyndon Swaby. The lap cars being very respectful, as they always are. But that was Trepanier's last hope, I think. His hope was that the lap car would screw up Sean Campbell a little bit. It didn't. The gap's going to stay at 6/10. Sean Campbell is not a driver that frequently makes mistakes. If he can hold 6/10 back to Trepanier, this is going to be a comfortable drive home for him.
You say comfortable, but despite the fact that he has controlled this race, I don't think this is necessarily the sort of close finish that he would have anticipated. Be curious to talk to him about setup compromises, maybe running a little bit less wing, because Trepanier has been well and truly able to hold on in the draft, but just a couple of vital corners to go. They fight behind. Ian Green slides past Martin Crisp in the SimCity Racing 954 in this fight for 6th.
Whoa! Martin Crisp tries to go for a dive into turn 7. That's never going to work, but he's going to switch it back, actually. It's not going to work, though. Crisp is going to have to slot back in line. He's going to have one more shot at the hairpin. That's going to be his final chance.
So out of here, Crisp, I think, will just try and pinch Ian Green. That will be the opportunity. Ian Green wise to that one, though, sweeps back to the left side, and they'll run out of turn 10 for the final time. But down the hill and through the final sequence of corners, Trepanier tried to knock at the door that was the RSR by butt kicker, Sean Campbell 26 machine, but impervious to the pressure and winning once more. Sean Campbell returns to winning ways in the PRL, 2 for 2 to kick off the GT3 Sprint Championship, conquering Twin Ring Motegi.
Yeah, 12 for 12 overall. If we're talking overall, he showed up on the GT4 scene last season, won 10 for 10, shows up in the GT3s this season, wins 2 for 2 so far. Somebody's going to beat him, though. Somebody's going to beat him eventually. It will happen, and that was a great challenge by Vincent Trepanier. He was challenged a lot of times in the GT4s, and Vincent Trepanier put up yet another challenge, but it's going to be so tough.
And in the AM class, it is victory in dramatic fashion for Miguel Fonseca. I mean, so many of these contenders had to contend with the pro drivers working their way through, but it was the 11, the Audi, that was able to do so the best, put some distance, some cars between him and Alex Bergstrom for the driver in virtual reality. It will be virtual champagne for him in victory lane. What a debut for, or an introduction to PRL for myself. Some great GT3 action. We do it again in a week's time, and a schedule this fall that, Joey, I think we are both really looking forward to.
And it's been the season of the first-time winner. Miguel Angel Fonseca, another driver, getting his first win in GT3 AM. We saw in the last race another first-time winner in... Why am I blanking? Who won the last race? It was... this is embarrassing. It was Bonatti and the Michael Terrafino, of course. Michael Terrafino, I hope you're not still listening. Jeez. But that was a first-time winner. Jameson Sampaio's been winning his first races. It has been a crazy way to start the season in every single PRL series.
Yeah, now I'm a bit disappointed I missed last week's round in America's National Park of Speed, because I get the sense it's only going to build and get better from here. A double-header of GT3 action here in the land of the rising sun, but it is Sean Campbell, 12 for 12 in PRL competition. Yet another victory to add to the stable for the RSR by Butt Kicker team. Behind him, Trepanier, just 8/10 off the pace in the ASR Esports Chrome number 87, with the Leo Racing number 61 holding on to the final step on the podium. Diego Morales in fourth, in front of Gonzalo Cortez, who found himself in no man's land and running by himself for the vast majority of this race. Mitchell Ian Green coming out on top in the battle with Martin Crisp, Sean Dickinson, Caven Norris, and Ryan Pucktel. Only a couple of non-Porsches inside of this top 15. Good to see the BMWs, JR Williams as well, of course, of Sean Dickinson running well, with Guinness for ASR Esports Chrome 11th, SRT Esports in 12th, with Hardpoint by Delta Sport in 13th, Williams 14th, and Demas Jr. 15th. Mark McDonald in the Russ Racing number 216 finishes 16th, with McLaughlin, Lowendick, and Brisson. The top 19 making up the majority of your pro field. Fonseca winning in AM, down in 20th position overall, in front of Tom Fain and Alex Bergstrom, who get second in that AM category. Thomas Dunn 23rd overall, while Blake Ziti packs up the victory from 7 days ago by finishing on the podium in the Long Island Racing Team Audi. Turner Schroll in the HPDS Academy BMW in 25th, with Brett Thurman behind David Bush, Rob Campbell, Ryan Patrick, and Nathan Deering bookending the top 30. As always, a big field of competition will cycle through the next 22 or so names. A fun old race, but a familiar winner in PRL.
A familiar winner who is not waiting for us in the interview channel. I'm going to send him a message, because I'm going to force Sean Campbell to come up in here to talk to you, Arjuna. I'm looking forward to talking to Vincent Trepanier.
Well, you know why?
Because
he hasn't finished doing his victory lap just yet.
Oh, that's true. Well,
yeah.
Him and Ted, they're doing like RSR by Butt Kicker photo shoots out there. I saw them in formation.
I know, so I tell you what, instead of waiting for him, because he is very much getting content for Isaac Snyder to grab, let's drag in our AM class winner, and Joey Tebben will chat with Miguel Fonseca.
Miguel, after last season, you were on the podium so many times. You finally got that win done here tonight.
Yes, I'm so happy.
That was a pretty crazy race, at least where you were in the middle of the field on lap 1. I think you got put 3 wide. You survived. What was it like from your perspective? What was it like inside that headset?
It was a lot of silly mistakes, a little silly mistakes that complicated my race. But at the end, I think we had really lucky surviving that 3 wide. And yeah, after that, I was in a little fight for a bit. And I think I was fuel saving, and I think that worked out well. So there's not much to it, but I'm really happy.
Seems like it's a pretty even playing field in the AM class this season. You got you winning, Blake Ziti won last week. It seems like it's pretty competitive in that class this season. What are you thinking about the full season? It's going to be hard to fight for this championship, I'm sure, but is that your aim by the end of the year?
Yeah, it's fun racing against a variety of guys, and not just seeing McLaughlin going away every race.
All right, well, we congratulate you on your first win tonight, and here's to many more for the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys.
Miguel Angel Fonseca, a first-time winner in the Precision Racing League, and doesn't look like we have our pro winner here with us just yet. I will ask him, but runner-up Vincent Trepanier is with Arjuna.
Yeah, we'll chat with a man that tried everything in that Porsche 911 GT3R. But Vincent, I mean, what more could you have done to knock at the brick wall that was Sean Campbell here today?
Sean Campbell is too strong for me. So yeah, congratulate to him for the win.
In terms of this track, Vincent, I'm sure, you know, with so many of you running Porsches, you're all likely inside of the same setup window. How difficult is it at Motegi to stay, you know, close with the dirty air and to stay close enough to try and move? Because there was really only a couple of laps where we really saw you close enough to really put any doubt into Campbell's mind.
Yeah, but I know a couple of times I just little a spin just before the bridge. So a lot of time I spin just right here. So I lost a couple of tenths just right there. So it's for that, and the dirty air is very bad on this track. So I run approximately at 1.2 seconds from Sean Campbell, but he's too strong for me.
I mean, as you look forward, it's a fascinating calendar that is going to take us around the world, but also add a couple of new tracks that you and your fellow competitors have not seen before. How are you looking forward to the rest of this year?
I hope I will. I want to finish in the top 5 in the championship, but I know PNT and Sean Campbell, they are really strong, and Morales too. So I will try my best, but yeah, I will try top 3 or top 4 for the championship. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Vincent. Congratulations on second and a great run in that ASR Esports Chrome entry. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a chat with Sean Campbell here. Clearly getting so used to winning that he doesn't want to come and speak to myself and Joey. So instead, Joey, let's look forward very quickly before we get ready to say goodbye. Of course, it's a trip to Georgia. It's a trip to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, where hopefully the Motul Petit Le Mans will be hosted this coming weekend, but it's a track with so much character and so many challenges.
So many challenges and unique challenges. Like I mentioned previously, we go from the technicality of Motegi, the constant tight corners, the hairpins, the awkward final sector, to a track that just flows beautifully. It's like a roller coaster. It's constant high speed. It's constant high commitment. And we'll see what happens next week. Sean Campbell just sent me a message, by the way. He says he promises he'll do one this season, but tonight is not the night. It'll happen eventually.
I'm just saying I'm going to message his team manager at the Our Side by Butt Kicker team and ask if he can chastise Sean for the lack of media responsibility. Here's a look at the schedule, of course, though, before we say goodbye. Remember, doubleheader GT3 Tuesday night action, but there's PRL racing basically every day of the week, other than Friday and Saturday, live on RaceSpotTV, and of course on VCO Esports as well. Twin Ring Motegi was fun, Road Atlanta, Laguna Seca, and then over to Snetterton. But it's the 2 new tracks that I think, Joey, you have get circled.
I do have Snetterton circled because while we don't run it often in the GT3s, I personally have seen GT3 races in the Precision Racing League at Snetterton that have been absolutely fantastic, that have been absolutely dramatic. And like you said, the 2 other new tracks, Aschersleben, Rudskogen, just complete wild cards. Who knows how they're going to go? And you're going to have to be with us for the next 8 weeks to see what happens.
It's a good incentive. Join the voice of PRL, Joey Tebben, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, on Tuesday night for a fantastic doubleheader of GT3 racing. Of course, tomorrow, Wednesday evening, live on RaceSpotTV and VCO Esports, join Joey as well as Terry Radford for the Precision Racing League Truck Series. Before on Thursday night, the Formula 4 opens the show for the Formula 3 machines. It's always fun when we break out the open wheelers. And then we start the party again on Sunday night for the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Today, though, from Motegi, it was the road course that took center stage. And what a couple of races we had in the fixed setup competition. It was a battle to the line. It was a battle to the line in the open setups as well. A week of first-time winners, a week for many that they will never forget. On behalf of the team of RaceSpotTV, we thank you for your company tonight. For Joey Tebben, for myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week from the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. For now, we bid you farewell, and we'll see you next time on RaceSpotTV.